Recording in progress.
Good morning. Good morning, honorable members.
Good morning, Mr. Subrati.
Jirai, can I check with you if we correct to proceed?
We can proceed, Mr. Subrati.
Thank you, Hajira. Good morning once again, honorable members. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, leaders of various entities from the various departments. I'm trying to check if the minister has joined already. I have been told the minister will be joining us, but he will have to leave early. So good morning to all of you. For those who are unfamiliar with myself, my name is Imran Subrati. I'm a member of this committee and the acting chair during the absence of the chairperson of the committee, Honorable Kusela Sangoni Diko, who is in the ad hoc committee. And during her absence, I am the acting chairperson in this committee. You're all welcome to this morning's Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. Hajira, may I please request that you flight the agenda? Thank you, Hajira. Hajira, before we proceed with the adoption of the agenda, may I please check with you what are the apologies for this morning's meeting?
Good morning, Mr. Subrati. As indicated, the minister will join but would have to leave early. The indication is that the minister would have to leave off after the opening remarks. Then we have an apology for the deputy minister who is attending a World Telecommunications Development Conference. In addition, we have apologies for our members, standing apology for Ms. Sangoni Diko, Ms. Chauke Adonis, and Mr. Shongwe. Thank you.
Thank you, Hajira. Thank you for those apologies. And we note the apology specifically of the minister who needs to leave after his opening remarks. Colleagues, we have the agenda before us, as was indicated in our group by the content advisors. The entire item that we were intending to deal with today surrounding the OEMs has been moved off the agenda for the reasons that the content advisors have indicated, that we were unable to get all the OEMs on the same platform to be with us. And given the importance of the OEMs meeting with them, that matter has been deferred. And thank you for honorable members for supporting that deferment in the group. The agenda before us is quite straightforward. We want to deal with the adoption of the strategic plan of the committee, which we will deal with first. Then we have to deal with the adoption of the minutes of the last meeting, and thereafter the substantial discussion of today will be around the presentation by the Department and Operation Vulindlela, which sits in the Office of the President, on the digital transformation roadmap and the progress made towards its implementation and the institutional arrangements. That is our agenda for today, honorable members. May I therefore, after I request that your support and assistance for adopting this agenda.
Good morning, Chair and members, guests. It's Honorable Matafa. Can I proceed?
Yes, Honorable Matafa.
Thank you very much, Chair. I move for the adoption of the agenda as tabled by yourself, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Matafa.
But maybe start with what
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Nkobisi.
Sir, I move to second the move of the adoption of the agenda as stipulated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nkobisi. Honorable members, with the adoption of the agenda, we can now proceed with item 1. Thank you so much for your assistance in adopting that agenda. Hajra, may I request then the content advisors to get an indication from the content advisors regarding the strategic plan. Honorable members, as you would know, we did have a brainstorming session. We had a workshop surrounding the strategic planning of the committee. We thereafter allowed extensive amount of time for inputting by various members, which members have done. And we're hoping today, as we receive the agenda, as we receive the strategic plan, it would incorporate all inputs from honorable members, and therefore I'm hoping that the process of its adoption will be quite seamless. We all have had extensive sight of it. Maybe let me get a sense from the content advisors. Mr. Maleka, will you be leading the presenting to us a strategic plan at a high-level presentation, but mainly focusing on the strategic priorities that we would have adopted and as inputted, that we would have as members inputted into the strat plan? Mr. Maleka, would you be assisting us?
Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable members and colleagues. Yes, I will be leading the presentation because Dr. Midupi is off accompanying the chairperson to Ghana. But yes, I will be leading through it with the understanding that the members have had extensive look at the revised strategic plan. Shall I be permitted to flight the actual document?
You can proceed, Mr. Maleka.
Thank you. Where is it? Pardon me, just 1 second. I have too many documents opened here. Trying to find the actual one final. That's not it. Documents.
Please make sure you table the final document. Now we've had a few versions of the strat plans coming up as members have been inputting from time to time. So the last one that was shared by Hajira in the group, which should be flighted.
That's correct, sir. I'm actually just looking for that one in particular. Please. I take it my screen is visible.
Yes.
Honorable Chairperson, without going into details of the strategic plan, I just would like to indicate that all the inputs that were made by members are most probably highlighted, with the exception of the contributions from Honorable Delisha, which are part of the budget, of the revised budget. Those ones are not highlighted. The first inputs, I must also make mention, Honorable Chair, that what we had done was, also rearrange the document on the basis of the inputs that we got. The first inputs that were incorporated from the members fall under section 5.2, which is the legislative gaps of the committee, precisely focusing mainly on the financial sustainability of the SABC, where the contribution was that the SABC faces persistent and structural financial crisis driven by outdated funding model, declining linear advertising revenue models, and mounting debt to Centec, which obviously is limiting the operations of the entity. And of course, the committee emphasized that this is unsustainable and threatens the public broadcaster's mandate, and that there's a need to revise the sustainability model of the SABC. And I'm quite sure that we're all aware that the minister has been working on that particular part. The second addition to this section of the document was the establishment of the SIDIC, the State Digital Infrastructure Company, and that the delays in operationalizing this SIDIC to drive, a competitive edge for broadband rollout of the department, and that the committee will ensure that will conduct acute oversight in ensuring that the SIDIC is established. The next really huge contribution, or in fact, most of them were took into the section that deals with the committee's strategic priorities, and those are covered under section 7.3. And maybe I should just read throughout all of them, Honorable Chair. But as you will notice, most of them are highlighted in various colors depending on the member that had submitted. And the first one is that we need to strengthen oversight to ensure mechanisms that monitor government responsiveness, and that we need to advance BBBEE within the sector by promoting equitable ownership, inclusive participation, and sustainable enterprise development, and ensuring that historically disadvantaged individuals and communities are primarily the benefits of the digital economy. And then the next one is that we need to establish an international benchmarking system that integrates global standards, peer reviews, digital maturity assessments, and regular self-evaluations to keep the community governance, oversight, and policy innovation at a world-class level and responsive to global trends. And the sub-bullets to that talk about the safeguarding of digital sovereignty through the development of locally oriented legislation, as well as safeguarding data sovereignty, which will ensure that South Africa maintains control over its digital infrastructure and information assets, enabling secure, ethical, and sustainable participation in the digital economy. And the next area of focus is improving public appointment processes to ensure open, uniform, and transparent appointments of public officers. The next one is the implementation of oversight measures to ensure an inclusive approach to digital services for rural communities, with a specific focus on promoting broad economic participation. The next one is the expedite overhaul of the sector legislative frameworks to ensure regulatory relevance, include industry stability, innovation, friendly governance, and universal digital inclusion amid fast-changing technology and socio-economic needs. The sub-bullets to that priority to align government digital transformation goals with the committee's oversight to ensure that the intended policy outcomes are achieved, as well as enforcement of empowerment to promote an inclusive and competitive digital ecosystem guided by principles of universal access and service. The next priority then is enhancing legislative processes and public involvement to provide meaningful, adequate opportunities for public participation in the legislative and other parliamentary proceedings. And the next one is ensure critical oversight on equipping of citizens, public servants, and businesses with the digital competencies required to thrive in a knowledge-based economy, thereby reducing the digital divide and fostering socio-economic development. The next one says the absence of a sovereign satellite capability limits national self-reliance in Earth observation, secure communications, and broadband access, creating dependence on foreign services. Rollout. The next.
Mr. Maleka, I'm finding your connectivity is very weak. Am I the only one who can't hear Mr. Maleka?
You are not, Chair.
Mr. Maleka, may I please request that you change your positioning? You're weak. You are very weak. We're still stuck on the absence of a sovereign. Mr. Maleka, we lost you there. We lost you there. Your connection is weak.
The next one, I'm reading this.
Yeah, I think switch off your camera. Switch off your camera to improve your bandwidth.
Oh.
And comments with the absence of a we lost you from the absence of a sovereign satellite.
Oh, okay, great. So I'll go back to that, Chair. But I think the intention of that one is that, in terms of the satellite, the committee commits to working closely with the Portfolio Committee on Science and Innovation to ensure a sustainable rollout of a state-controlled satellite program. The next one, Chair, looks at the spectrum licensing, and that the committee will in partnership with the CASA, ensure that the revision of the spectrum licensing conditions are done acutely ahead of the next round of spectrum auction. The next one, Chair, is that a coordinated national strategy for the construction of hyperscale and local data centers is lacking, which is critical for ensuring data sovereignty, securing national data, and capturing a greater share of the global digital economy. Therefore, the Portfolio Committee will ensure that the department gives focused attention to this priority during this financial year. The committee will encourage and monitor the formation of a public and private initiatives that aim to advance this priority of data centers. The next one, Honorable Chair, is that we will prioritize the transformation of the ICT sector by strengthening oversight of the equity equivalent investment program. And this will include, of course, enforcing compliance, ensuring transparency from multinational corporations, and working with the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition to ensure regular reporting. And the members will be aware we already started with that particular program, and that the committee will also encourage stakeholders to engage and consider policy measures to speed up the inclusive transformation agenda of the sector. The next one relates to Postbank in pursuit of a state bank license and its broader mandate to promote financial inclusion. To ensure sustainability, the committee will advocate for the redirection of government transactions to Postbank and encourage the development of alternative revenue streams for the bank. It will also support institutional strengthening and innovation to improve service delivery and operational efficiency. The next one is that we'll be improving international engagements to ensure ratification and monitoring of international agreements. While the next one looks at technical skills and capacity building for members, in that we'll improve the quality of information analysis and research for the committee oversight activities by strengthening research capacity, providing access to independent data, fostering structured collaboration, and incorporating specialized analytic tools. And the last one in the priorities, Honorable Chair, is that the committee needs to play a critical oversight and policy shaping role in ICT market consolidation by ensuring that the sector development serves public interest, uphold competition, enable digital transformation, and align to national objectives. Honorable Chair, the strategic priorities for the 7th Portfolio Committee, therefore, will focus really on an inclusive economic growth and digital transformation by driving regulatory modernization, promoting universal access, conducting evidence-based oversight, and fostering stakeholder collaboration in the communications and digital technology sector. I will therefore then, Honorable Chair, in the interest of time, move straight to, without necessarily going deep into the other sections, move to the actual strategic objectives of the committee. We have 5 strategic goals, honorable members. One being improved performance and effectiveness. The second being increased government responsiveness and accountability. The third being meaningful citizen involvement and participation. The fourth being increased member capacity and performance. And the last one being the impactful lawmaking. And as you will notice, all the strategic objectives are outlined accordingly. In terms of our broader the 5-year strategic objectives, you will notice then that we start to unpack over the medium term all the various objectives for the various financial years. And then I will move over to the annual performance plan for the financial year 26-27. In terms of the first strategic goal, which is the performance and effectiveness, we have about 4 activities that will then guide the work of the committee during the financial year, as said. Whereas for the second one, which is government accountability, we have three objectives guiding the work of the committee for the financial year. Under citizen participation, we also have three strategic objectives that will guide the work of the committee over the financial year. Whereas the member capacity as well, we have three strategic objectives. And lastly, on impactful lawmaking, we have five strategic objectives over the financial year. Honorable Chair, I'll move over to the budget. I'm not sure if Mr. Ngoma is on the platform. I would have loved that he presents this, but I will go ahead in case he's not here. Over the projected expenditure over the 5-year term, Honorable Chair, amounts to 39.8 million. And this is on the basis of the inputs of Honorable Delishi, because what we had done, as you will notice here on the second column, Honorable Chair, this is the budget that was originally allocated to the committee, which was about 3 million. And taking into consideration the inputs from the honorable members, we then had to go haywire and come up with a budget that we think is most appropriate for the work of the committee. The total budget for the committee, the proposed one, following the inputs from the members, would amount to 7.2 million over the financial year of 2026. The oversight budget has been increased to 2.2 million. The public participation and hearings increased to 1.5 million. The research, content, and ICT digital tool support, we allocated 1.2 million. For the committee capacity development, we've allocated 1 million. The statutory appointments, unfortunately, is very stagnant, but it will still remain at that 104 million. In terms of the other engagements of the committee, including seminars, colloquiums, is 900,000, and we then put a contingency of 400,000. I see Mr. Ngoma has raised a hand, Honorable Chair, through you. I was hoping that he would be actually one that talks to the budget more. Thank you.
Mr. Ngoma.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members, Minister, and officials of the department and entities, as well as the officials of Parliament on the platform. Chair, if I can just request Mr. Maleka to just stop sharing.
Stop sharing. Okay.
Yes.
The floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Chair, I just want to share the current financial year budget, even before we take members through the, even before we take members through that the budget that is on the strategic plan. Chair and members, this is the budget of the committee for the 2025-2026 financial year. As received from our budget office, the committee was allocated a total amount of 3 million for the financial year, and the budget that is currently available before the committee, after about 500,000 of the budget has been used, is currently 2.4 million. That is the budget that is currently available after the allocation of 3 million. Now, from my experience with committees, this amount hasn't changed much from the previous allocations. However, there was a time that committees did not have their own budget, but everything was done through the National Assembly Consolidated Fund. So I just thought it's important, before we even take you through that budget slide, that we present this to you, so that you at least have an idea of what had been allocated to the committee and what had been used, and how much is remaining, which I will then just explain on the slide that I will share next. Thank you. As I proceed to share the other one, Chair. Chair and members, this is really the same slide that was shared by Mr. Maleka in the strategic plan. First, I think it's just important to indicate to members that the fiscus runs from the 1st of April till the 31st of March. That would be the financial year. However, parliamentary terms do not run concurrent to that fiscus, even though the parliamentary fiscus would run concurrent to all the other fiscus. But the terms, for instance, we are currently on the 4th term of parliament, even though we are in the 3rd quarter of the fiscus. But this budget, members, we thought that firstly, before we even start planning for the next term, it's important that we take you through from what was allocated. As you would have seen in the previous slide, we had a total budget of a total budget of 3 million, and the budget that is currently being used is not much, because honorable members would remember that we have a planned international study tour, which is why you see that 1.850 million, which is reserved in this current in the budget of the current financial year for the study tour. And the oversight visit that you see there, honorable members, the 300,000 under the 2025-2026 budget, is the money that is reserved for, it's actually for the committee's upcoming oversight visit, planned oversight visit to the MTTA. And I hope that at the end of the meeting, the chair will perhaps also just speak or allow us to speak to the amended parliamentary program that has impact on the agreed dates for that oversight visit. During this financial year, members, we did not have any public hearings, and as you can see, those zeros there. And for the statutory appointments, honorable members, that 104,000 relates to the cost for the MTTA board interviews, which would be the only statutory appointment that would have conducted during the current financial year. ICASA was prior to was in the last financial year. And members, you might ask, where's the amounts for advertising and for the advertising costs? Those will not appear here, honorable members, because they would have been paid for from the National Assembly Consolidated Fund. Reason being that it's not all committees that conduct statutory appointments, so it would not be good to then expect that those committees that do statutory appointments would pay for all those costs from their budget. We only pay for the interview costs. And then, honorable members, the next 149,000 would relate to the colloquiums. Members would know they attended the ICT policy colloquium. There was GovTech, there was Africa Tech, all those costs, honorable members, and those trips that members would undergo and would have to maybe pay part of the costs for those trips. That is why there's that 149 there, honorable members. And then the strategic planning workshop of 95,000 that was held in the Cullinan, honorable members, which then amounts to the 500 which then amounts to the about 500, 500,000, which would have used, and then with remaining with that 2.4, wherein once those two amounts have been deducted from the 2.4, then would be left with about 500,000, which would carry to the next term. Honorable members, I thought it's important that I just present that. And then the other columns, term 1, which is next term, obviously this 500,000 would be able to cover the events that are planned for term 1. Members that asked previously why there was no reservations or budget for an oversight visit. If I remember, Mr. Maleka explained that because we're going on an international study tour, and therefore there wouldn't be an oversight. Just to correct that, honorable members, if the parliamentary program for next term, when it's released, make reservations for both for oversight visits, then would have that amount there, 313, that would still come from our current budget because in terms of the fiscals, that will be the fourth quarter, even though in terms of parliament, it would be term one. But the spending for that term one would still fall within the current financial year. And also, members, we've put also aside 150,000 in an event where we receive invitations from the department, the entities, those normal invitations that I spoke to earlier. We've put aside that money, and also we just put aside contingency, and that is where normally would even, if anything comes up after we've exhausted the budget, then we would hope that we'd still have that amount. And then the other terms, members, are projections. As Mbo would have indicated earlier, that the amounts look high, but those are projections for the other terms as per the strategic plan that the committee is about to adopt now. The amount, as Mr. Maleka would have indicated, of such projections, which amount to about 7.2, it looks quite high as compared to what would normally get for allocations. But if we do not align our projections to what is contained in the strategic plan, then we will not be doing justice to this committee. Chairperson, I know there are financial experts on this platform, CFOs and all from various entities and departments. We do not possess that skill as the support staff, so we always just try and develop what we can. So I don't want them to look at this and think, what is happening? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ngoma. You are our acting CFO at the moment, acting CFO, Mr. Ngoma. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you so much, Mr. Maleka, and thank you for capturing the sentiments of honourable members. Let me also thank honourable members for your contributions. As Mr. Maleka went through the priorities, I was really heartened by how well we have each contributed to deepening the strategic vision of the committee and giving us a document that we can own as a committee and to which we will hold ourselves accountable. So thank you so much. Honourable members, we've received the strategic plan. Much of it was discussed in our very first meeting, and we reached a point where we then said, let's allow members to input into certain strategic areas that we feel we should be, and that's really where we deepened the document, and that's what we received today. That is why Mr. Maleka didn't go through a lot of the other aspects, because that would have been either done or we would have had sight of that already. So let me therefore allow members to input, and whilst to input me, then I also request your support that we have, I think, past the date that we ought to have adopted the strategic plan. And one of the key things I need your assistance with today after inputting is that you support us in adopting our strategic plan. So I'd like to afford members an opportunity, Honourable Shabaleng, and thereafter Honourable Bodlani. Honourable Shabaleng.
Morning, Chair. Good morning, honourable members and the executives, ministers. I think my contribution is going to be quite short. Thanks for the presentation as well as the input on the updated draft. The inputs for me are quite valid in the sense that it shows that we have integrated. The only thing that is still missing for me is the question of how we translate the strategy. Strategy usually shouldn't be overly burdened by vision. It must be outcomes. It must be a what, how, and when. And I think as we adopt this thing, we need to come to a refinement of it at some point where we will just have to tick out strategic goals of what we want to achieve, meaning item lines per quarter or per season in terms of a year. So if we say this quarter we are going to achieve the full rollout and finalization of, say, DTT in terms of set-top boxes, there should be 2 million set-top boxes delivered to community XYZ. That is a strategy. It talks about the what, it addresses the how process of it, which means now we have to get stakeholders on board, which is entities and their responsibility line function, to give us the how part of it. And then the when is when we now get to do the rollout date finalization. So our whole strategic overview shouldn't be overly burdened with too many vision and issues that really are just talking at an over archaic level. but it should be talking on very basic things. What should be done? Our strategy, we want to get to, for instance, we are in Johannesburg, we want to get to Cape Town. How do you get there? You have defined your strategy, what you want to do. You want to get there, how? And then by which date are you going to get there? That's it. And then we focus ourselves and all our efforts on those things. The current plan does address part of it, but I think it's still too overly laden with a whole lot of English and nice jargon, which in a later stage we will refine it to a program which we want to finalize at the how, when, and what. The other part of it which I wanted to get back to is the the issue of the budget. On the allocation for, because I see it seems a bit confusing here. You have your budget in inverted commas, in brackets actually here, which I don't know what it means. Your oversight visits, one, which is the budget for this particular 2025 period, ending at the end of the next year's end of budget. You've got your study tour, you've got your statutory appointments, which is a cost on that side of it. And then you've got colloquiums, seminars, and sector consultants, etc. And then you have your strategic planning workshop, which I assume it has already been paid for, because most of those budget item lines either are already spent or it's something that is planned. The only thing I know that is currently in planning is the study tour and maybe oversight, which I'm not so sure about. Maybe I can get a bit of clarity on that one. The 2026, which is not properly done, it doesn't show which period, it just says, in red, amount of 2.2 million, 1.5 on public participation, etc. The breaking down, and it goes to 7.2 million. I'm still not sure how was that actually done, because if you were to look at it, it comes to 7 million in total. Is it for 2026 to 2027, etc.? What are we talking about? It's a bit confusing, that whole budget. If we can get a bit of clarity on that one. And then the other emphasis is, for instance, and then this is becoming a very norm in this committee. We get invited to colloquiums. Our internal support staff treats us like we are actually almost getting a free handout of some sort. We get booked into crappy hotels, terrible hotels, which I cannot even stay in. Even in my house, I can't stay in that kind of a condition. We get given sites and places where it seems like we've been done a favor, and it's been a common thing. The last study colloquium, which we were given a booking on, I just told the people and I said, no, keep that place. You can go and stay in there if you feel we are deserving of staying in such a place. And I think it's something very serious to consider, that when you budget for us as honorable members, we're the second most important people in this country, and yet we're treated as if we're the last important humans in South Africa. And this cannot go on. It has to stop at some point, because there is a level of disrespect at the level of our internal staff in how they're treating us when it comes to our budget and our money. We worked for this money. We brought our political parties' support on board. It doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to us who made it happen with our political basis and support. So we shouldn't be treated as if we have been done a favor when we are going out on work which relates to the committee, on supporting entities, which is departments, on ensuring that we can deliver for South Africans as public representatives. The entities are giving the best they can. They give us the best of support. They host us well. They do everything. But our internal operations sabotages us and treats us like we're second class anything. And this has to stop at some point, Chair. And in this budget, we need to make it very clear that this is a member's budget. It's got nothing to do with other people's emotions and feelings. And we're going to fight if this is going to be the current norm, where we're treated in this disrespectful manner. So I just wanted to make those points and not belabor points in terms of our strategic outcomes and overviews. And we need to start putting item lines on timelines and the finalization of some of these objectives. I'm happy everything has been captured from our side, including our member who submitted about a month ago a input into the strategy. So I'm quite grateful, and we're quite happy for the submission of this particular strategy. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Shabaleng. Honorable Botlani.
Oh, there I am. Chair, thank you so very much. Good morning to yourself, Chairperson, to the Minister, the meeting and the colleagues on the call, fellow South Africans. Chair, allow me to start where Honorable Ntshabeleng ended. And I think this is also a very important part of the strategy. And I have raised this issue before to say the planning around oversight is really bad. At the last one, I drove all the way to Pretoria and had to wait about an hour or so for my bookings to be finalized, when I really could have left later. So I lost time because it was just left to the last minute. And that is not an isolated incident. And I have ventilated on those, Chairperson. I might not do it as passionately as Honorable Ntshabeleng is, but the reality and the point we are making is that the support on our travel really needs to be improved. And we just need to be treated with a bit of courtesy, because we leave our homes going to work and somebody gets paid to make sure that at least that part of our leg of doing our job is really taken care of. And it's never, ever a pleasant experience. And we don't want a situation where we don't show up because we know that we are going to be left destitute, Chair. Chair, let me go back to the document at hand, Chair, and maybe let me again start by thanking the content advisors and the support staff for the document. As you would know, as a Democratic Alliance, we participated fully in the formulation of this document. That's why when an opportunity was given to do further inputs, we really did not come back, because we felt that our position was well captured in the strategic session. And the question then becomes, perhaps Mr. Maleka can advise, what becomes the life cycle of this document? Is it then taken to the National Assembly for debate and it gets approved? I really cannot remember what this life cycle would be. So just out of interest. Chair, and that said, Chair, we will support this strategic plan in principle as a Democratic Alliance. And this is with the appreciation that this is a multi-party portfolio committee, and it does represent different and diverse ideological positions of all the political parties that are represented in the portfolio committee. And I will just cite one example. The position that the portfolio committee is taking on BEE, as an example, is obviously contrary to what we stand for as the Democratic Alliance. So this is where the in principle comes. But I hope that makes sense, Chair. So we do obviously welcome the robustness that is also shown in the document and how large it is. That said, Chair, I don't know if it's at all possible, because now we are sitting with a 34-page document, which might be a bit difficult to really continue and track as a living document. Are we able to integrate this to the already tracking tool that I have been asking for a couple of months now, so that we are at least able to better track our progress and compress this 34-page into something smaller, that as we go on with the reviews of what we are doing, it becomes much more smaller. And I don't know how else to articulate what I'm saying, but I'm sure Mr. Maleka and Mr. Ngoma really do get what I'm saying. And also, Chair, the finances of the budget, are they rolled over? Because obviously last year there was not a single international trip. Do those finances roll over? Considering next year is an election year where political parties might not give us permission to perhaps travel, will those funds roll over? Is a rollover a thing? And I know I've asked this question, but I can't remember what the answer is. Are these finances ring-fenced for the portfolio committee? Because I remember an instance in the past where the portfolio committee went with a proposal to do benchmarking overseas, and we were told that the funds had been depleted when this portfolio committee had not done a single thing. Has that procedure changed? Is the funds ring-fenced? So that at least we know that as we work and do this, we are guaranteed that the funds are secured for our portfolio committee. And I'll stop there, Chair, and really thank the support staff for this document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Bodlani. Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, in the interest of time, I think I just want to actually just note my reservation on the BEE recommendations and strategic objectives. Other than that, I think I've been covered by the Honorable Butchani. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. Honorable Singh, are you moving for the adoption? Are you seconding? Honorable Singh, Honorable Bodlani has moved for the adoption of the report, given the knowledge that this is a political parties have their views, particularly around the BEEE, and knowing that this is a committee strategic plan, he has moved for its adoption. Are you seconding it?
I think the latest one.
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair. In principle, definitely yes.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. So, honorable members, Honorable Bodlani has moved for the adoption. Honorable Singh has seconded the adoption of the report. So thank you so much for that support in adopting that report. Maybe then let us allow for reflections and input on Honorable Shabaleng. Maybe let's let Mr. Maleka, you want to respond to some of the concerns Honorable Shabaleng spoke about. How then do we talk to the when, what, and holding ourselves accountable to timeframes? My understanding is a lot of this will now then be broken down into into our work program for the various terms as we head out together with tracking tools, so we hold ourselves accountable. That's how we will really make this a living document. Maybe Honorable Shabaleng, my understanding of the budget, and I'm also giving my inputs into the budget. My understanding of the budget is there is a wish list, and then there's a budget that Parliament can afford. And what Parliament can afford that has been allocated to us is 3 million rands. And my understanding is that will escalate by an average of 5%. That is what we can ordinarily expect in terms of affordability. However, the budget that has been done of 7 million, which also caught my eyes, is actually a budget that's talking to a plan that we have put in place. We have in our plan, we have certain intentions, and without a budget that talks to that plan, you're not going to achieve that plan. Hence, the phenomenal increase from 3 million to 7 million rand. Whether or not we receive that, of course, we must ask for that. Whether Parliament approves that, that remains to be seen. That is my understanding of where the 7.2 million comes in. I want to also then add my support to the concerns over the poor level of support members have been receiving. I think each and every one of us have experienced that, where we are being told, for example, on a Sunday you will leave at 1 p.m. and we just arrive on a Saturday to our families and our constituency. We are told you must leave on a Sunday early morning for your oversight to start on a Monday, not on a Sunday evening. So I think there needs to be greater discussions between members when planning takes place, and we shouldn't be just told this is what you're doing, but we should be given options. So I do fully support that, and maybe this has been coming up, and this isn't a portfolio committee on a public platform. Therefore, I think Secretariat, this matter needs to be noted for a discussion with the chairperson of the portfolio committee, Honorable Sangoni, when she does take over, hopefully in the new term. Then we need to then have a discussion around the concerns raised by Honorable Shabaleng, Honorable Bodlani, and as experienced by other honorable members. We really hold the support staff to improve their support of honorable members. Honorable Bodlani has raised a few questions around what is the life cycle of this document. And maybe then let me allow, are the finances rolled over? That's a very valid question, given the fact that next year is an election year. And can we compress into a smaller tool? Well, I suppose, again, that will talk to when we do refine and break it down into biteable sizes. Yes, it will have to be broken down into a smaller tool that is trackable. Mr. Maleka, let me allow you for brief reflections, and then after you maybe will allow Mr. Ngoma to reflect on the inputs by honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, for the inputs. I will most certainly allow my colleagues to also come in pitching where possible. I'm pretty sure they do have some inputs to make. My first response, Honorable Chair, in relation to the question around the objectives and the implementation thereof, is that I did make mention that we do have an APP that we developed out of the strategic plan, and the APP will look at the performance of the committee within one financial year. For instance, if we just look at just oversight visits, we know for a fact that we are. Apologies, just 1 second. Just apologies, I'm having a noise here. Apologies about that, Chair. For instance, I wanted to make mention of an example, for instance, on oversight. We know that our oversight is really guided by the Parliament program to such an extent that we go an entire 2 terms without an oversight. But in our planning and following the contributions from members, our take was that there is a strong emphasis from members that we should be going more on oversight and evaluating the programs of the committee at a national level, at a regional level, and at a local level. And for that reason, the budget is aligned to that in saying that at least per term, we would endeavor to go on 2 oversights per term. And therefore, that's why you see the kind of budget allocated to it. So I'd like to really emphasize that the APP is really the plan where we outline all activities of the committee. And of course, there is some linkage to the tracking tool, and we'll endeavor by all means to ensure that this is highlighted. But through the programming of the committee, we're able to extrapolate issues coming from the annual performance plan, as well as from the tracking tool, which also tracks recommendations that have been done over time, so that we then have a meaningful and detailed program that guides the work of the committee over any term for that matter. In terms of the life cycle of the strat plan, I'll let Mr. Ngoma to answer on that. And the tracking of the APP, yes, you're right, Honorable Bodlane, it'll be done definitely through the tracking tool. And our apologies that it has not been really communicated widely. The tracking tool is still sitting with the chairperson. She was not happy that it was still in its agrarian form in a spreadsheet. So we are indeed in engagement with CETA to assist us to automate that tool so that by the time we come to present to the members, it is something that is plausible and easy to understand and not as complex as in a spreadsheet that it is in at the moment. In terms of the budget, I think, Honorable Chair, you have quite covered me at length to say that this is a wish list. Needless to say that there's been a prescribed approach to budgeting in Parliament where all committees fall under one blanket. So they just issue out a blanket budget that does not take into cognizance the intricacies of any of the sectors. And that's the quagmire we're stuck with for a long time. But we really will implore the members to also take this at a political level to ensure that committees are allocated budgets that fit the purpose of their work. And we know our sector is too dynamic. There's just no way that you can just give it 3 million and expect it to work. For instance, the issue of members participating in public hearings and all that is a critical aspect of oversight, because only then will members understand and contextualize what kind of issues that the sector deals with, and therefore apply necessary oversight mechanisms to achieve that. In terms of support of honorable members during travel, my immediate recommendation or suggestion, proposal would be that we would need to engage with the unit manager or managers of the committee section, because it's obviously something above our forte. We all have specified roles and delegations in terms of what we do. Without necessarily pointing to anyone, we work as a collective to ensure that members get all the support that they do. But if members find it wanting elsewhere or somewhere, I really do like to put the proposal forward that let us maybe through the chairperson's office ensure that the unit manager is engaged to ensure that we can resolve those challenges that members face when they're on travel. I'll let my other colleagues come in, Honorable Chair, through you. Thank you very much. I hope I've covered most of the issues that were raised. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Meleka. Mr. Ngema.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, honorable members. Chair Mr. Maleka has covered a number of issues, especially the one that relates to the concerns that members have raised in relation to travel, the support that they receive during travel. Safe to indicate that, as Mr. Maleka had said, we really have different roles in the committee as much as we try to do teamwork, but we will escalate the matter and we undertake to do better next time. Also, Chairperson, just safe to indicate that in terms of these travel arrangements, there are also processes that we follow that are sometimes beyond our wishes as well. And I think that the issue that Mr. Chabelang has raised specifically in relation to maybe the observations that you would have made on the support or on the assistance provided by Parliament and maybe the assistance that colleagues from the departments and entities receive. Whereas we've made that it's an observation that sometimes we've made as well. But unfortunately, Chair, from our side, there are processes that we need to follow in terms of bookings and all that. And I sincerely request that members also raise these concerns on the other relevant platforms or with the relevant political offices, such as those of the office, such as the office of the House Chairperson of committees, or the office of the Chief Whip, or any other platforms that are put there in place for members to engage on, Chair, because would really like to also make sure that we provide the best that we can to the members, but we have to follow internal processes at the same time. But as I already indicated earlier, from our side, we undertake to do better, Chair, in terms of the support that we provide to the committee. Chair, just to respond also to two or three issues that were raised by Ms. Bodlani. Process of the threat plan after the adoption, it doesn't get tabled for debate in the National Assembly, but we do submit the adopted document to the office of the House Chairperson responsible for committees oversight and public participation. And as Mr. Maleka had explained, it's also the same document that would be used to develop APP that will then translate into the committee program for the terms of Parliament. So, and also, Chair, that the threat plan remains a threat plan of the committee, and at any given moment in time, the committee can review and amend its strategic plans. My apologies, its strategic plan document. On the issue of the budget allocation, Honorable Bolani, yes, the 3 million is ring-fenced to the committee. It's not to be shared with any other committees, which when I explained earlier that previously we work on NA consolidated fund, there was no specific allocations to the committee As members would remember, there was a time where austerity measures in place. Parliament was also affected. So there was a time when we worked strictly on the NA Consolidated Fund, and I'm safe to indicate that it's only came back again this financial year that the committee had its own budget allocation of the 3 million. On the issue of rollover, honorable members, I do not remember there being a rollover on the budget, so I can just again revisit this and maybe report in the next meeting. But as far as my recollection can serve me, I do not remember the budget being rolled over. Chairperson, once again, we do undertake to provide all the support to the committee to the best of our ability, and as I also indicated, that we'd appreciate that some of the issues that members raise, they can also raise in the relevant structures because some are beyond our control. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, honorable members.
Thank you, Mr. Ngoma. And before maybe you leave, Mr. Ngoma, let me just ask you one question. You indicated that this strategic plan will be sent to the office of the House Chair, and that would include the 7.2 million budget, this wish list that we have. Where then does this get, who listens to this budget in a parliamentary process? Because we've put down this wish list, and Mr. Malek has indicated and given us, for example, one of the reasons is to double up our oversight visits to 2 per term. And that explains why 600,000 as opposed to 300,000 is budgeted per oversight visit. Now then, how then does this find expression in the parliament to say that the portfolio committee of DCDT has made a request of 7.2 million for X, Y, and Z reasons? Where in this process will this be heard? Otherwise, it's just an internal document that we would be preaching to ourselves. How then does this get escalated?
Chairperson, thank you very much. Chairperson, can I then look into that and report back to the committee, Chair? But safe to say, Chair, it's we adopt, it gets we send it to that, we submit it to that office, and there are structures of that office that meet and look in our strategic plan documents that would probably find its way into to when the committee's budgets are allocated. But I don't really want to respond fully to that, Chair, without having all the right information. So it's one of the issues that I will investigate further and then report back to the committee. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Mr. Ngoma. So maybe my ask of you would then be to just track that, particularly the budget, the financial side, to ensure that we get as close to possible to what we would want. That would be our ask of Secretariat as we move off this item. And thank you so much once again to content advisors, to the support team, and to honourable members for your input and for assisting us in ensuring that our strategic plan of the Portfolio Committee is adopted. Thank you so much, honourable members. Honourable members, we have one more minute to adopt before we move on to the items surrounding the...
Chair, my hand is up.
Sorry, Honourable Shabaleng, I didn't notice you. Honourable Shabaleng? Briefly, as I invite you, briefly, Honourable Shabaleng.
Yeah. Briefly, so, Chair, thanks a lot. I think the response is not satisfactory on the support issue because we have other committees which do not give us similar service or issues relating to how we are catered for as members. So ours, it looks like it's an issue of an attitude as well as a tendency of people thinking they can just do as they wish with us, and it has to stop. Either we get people to remove themselves from this committee on a support level, or we are going to really push to, if in my world where I come from, I would have fired you already. So I don't really come across where we're having a situation where people are giving us attitudes and it's not acceptable. And we are not going to sit back and say, no, things must be escalated. We've never had an issue in any of our committees where we have had to escalate issues to various, whips and whatever, and relating to issues of taking it to chairs of chairs or even the speaker's office. We've had very good, cordial working relationships. Excellent, by the way, excellent. Par excellence in terms of travel arrangements as well as catering for members. It's only this committee that we are experiencing this glitch. So it has to do with people in this committee that either needs to be removed or remove themselves. So it is as simple as that. The attitudes are too high towards members, and it's not acceptable. So I'm not going to accept Mr. Ngoma's response and answer, or if it needs us to escalate it further, we will have to do that. But at this level, I think the issue is an attitude of members, because if you go to other committees, we can even give you examples, or maybe we must refer people to go and learn from other committees on how they do this basic task of travel arrangement for members. This is non-negotiable, this is unacceptable, and I'm not going to be debating it again. I'm going to make sure that I write properly to the committee starting first, and then we will escalate it according to the line. But the issue is to do with individuals. I'm not going to mention names here, but I can tell you we have an attitude problem from the staff that is giving us support towards travel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Chabeling. I think the Secretariat and the support staff tried to respond without mentioning names. They've indicated that they try their best as a collective, but they've also indicated that there are avenues for us to escalate it. And I think they've indicated...
Chair, don't summarize us. Our views are very succinct. Leave it as it is. Move to the next item.
Thank you, Honorable Chabeling. I was just adding to that, maybe the way forward, therefore, would be then to take the cue and write to the unit manager and escalate our concerns formally, Mr. Ngoma. So if you could please assist us, so then we give effect to this, that at this meeting, continuously concerns were raised regarding the support, and we'd like the unit manager to investigate this concern of honorable members. In that way, then we would have escalated beyond just a talk shop in our committee. So let's start.
I spoke about attitudes. How do you write to a chair of chairs about your own attitude? So that's why I said, don't summarize us. Leave our points as it is. People know what they're doing in this chair, in this committee. It is quite wrong and it's unacceptable. They need to change their attitudes and either go and learn and adapt properly or do their work properly. You are summarizing them, you're giving them what you call a walk away free out of this whole thing. It's not the case. Leave it as it is. They heard what I said. They can go and repeat this online and hear what I said.
Thank you, Honorable Chabeling. Thank you for ventilating your concerns, and let's hope we get an improvement in service levels, honorable members. Honorable members, let us move on to the next item, that is the adoption of the minutes of the last meeting. Hajira, may I invite you then to flag the minutes and go to the minutes with us briefly. It has been circulated to members.
Good morning, members. Members, we have the minutes Tuesday, 11th of November. We have the agenda in front of us there. It was the report back by the department on the recommendations emanating from CETA, special oversight, as well as the presentation by CETA on client retention and growth strategy, amongst others. And also we had the presentation by DTIC on equity equivalent investment programs. As we go down on page 1, members, we have attendance of members of the committee. We also have the apologies. We have the attendance of the department. On the following page, further names. And then there was the opening and welcome members. We have our consideration and adoption of minutes. Just to note that the minutes of the 29th was adopted and that we did note Ms. Singh's reservation on the BBE recommendation. On the third item, it's just the items mentioned above. And then we have our observations on those items. Observations, members. I will read the recommendations now, members. On CETA, the recommendations is that CETA submit regular progress reports to the committee on the implementation of its reforms, automation initiatives, and SCM strategy. That CETA board and management should maintain the current focus on accountability, measurable results, and transparent reporting. That CETA establish a departmental representation model, appointing client liaison or account managers in each major department. That the department oversee the support of this engagement model and report back to committee within a set time frame. that the PSC expedite the investigation and provide interim progress updates to the committee, that the department implement concurrent corrective measures to prevent ongoing service delivery failures, that the department develop a clear accountability framework for executives and political heads to prevent recurrence, that the department and CETA submit a comprehensive report on national data management, that CETA provide quarterly updates on client retention progress, complaints, resolutions, that CETA should ensure that automation enhances, does not replace human capacity, and provide a timeline for full SCM automation, that CETA submit a detailed post-trip report outlining key learnings and technologies explored and how these are being applied within CETA, that CETA and the department should develop a comprehensive human capital plan, including retention of skilled personnel and reduction of dependency on consultants. Further to that, we had opening remark by the Deputy Minister, DTIC, and we then had our presentation on EEIPs. This is the observation made by members. And here is the recommendations, which I will read now, members. The committee resolved that EEIPs be reviewed comprehensively to assess the economic transformation outcomes and not just a training numbers, that DTIC update and publish annual EEIP performance data, that DTIC issue public policy clarification reaffirming that no EEIP exempts a company from BBBE obligations, that DTIC should review and amend the BBBE Act and close loopholes that allow avoidance through payment of minor fines and through EEIPs, and that DTIC establish a joint working group with ICASA and the BBBE Commission to harmonize the ECA Act and the BBBE frameworks. The matters that were arising happened today, that we adopted our strat plan report and that the committee intended to follow up on oversight visits to CETA, and also the committee will schedule future meeting with DTIC. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Hajira. Honorable members, there we have the minutes before us. Are there any additions to the minutes? Before I request your assistant members to adopt these minutes. Honorable Jabale, your hand is up.
Chair, I move for adoption.
Thank you, Honorable Chabaleng. Honorable Chabaleng moves for the adoption. Can I get a member to support, to second it? Honorable Botlani.
Chair, I am seconding the minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Botlani, for supporting it. Kiabonga, thank you so much. Honorable members, that's the minutes being adopted. We can now move on to the last item and the most important item on our agenda. Hajira, can I please ask you to flight that item? And that is the presentation by the department and the team from Operation Vulindlela on the digital roadmap, digital transformation roadmap. And maybe then let me invite the Honorable Minister, Honorable Minister Solly Malatsi, for his opening remarks, and then thereafter give us guidance in terms of how the presentation will be received. Honorable Minister Malatsi.
Good morning, Acting Chair, and to the members of the committee. Thanks very much for this opportunity to brief you on the work that the department, together with the team from Operation Vulindlela in the presidency through the Digital Services Unit, are doing in the execution of the digital transformation roadmap. And Chair, I think for the interest of time, I'll be very brief because the team will take you into detail in terms of the work that has been done so far, including some of the milestones around advances we're making in terms of digital public infrastructure, the efforts that the committee would have seen also with the launch of the working software around the MyMzansi app, and some of the progress that has been made so far. So from the department side, we've got the Director General and DDG Masholohu, both of whom you know very well, given the frequency of their interaction with the team. And then from the presidency through the head of the Operation Vulindlela team, we've got Mr. Rudy Dix. He's accompanied by Kule, who's the project lead and also the key point person in the digital services unit. You will see through the presentation that they will also be sharing some of the coordination of the cross-cutting work, particularly with regards to digital identity, secure data exchanges. A lot of their work has been visible in the public domain through some of the key launches that have taken place. So this would be an opportunity for the committee to get first-hand details on all of the ongoing projects, but how they are also coordinating efforts across all of government for a more focused, central, and harmonized approach to digital transformation. So, Chair, with that, I will hand over to the DG and then to the Operation Vulindlela team. I budgeted to be around at least until 10:30, so I'll stay for some of the opening remarks from the team, and then we'll be guided by you in terms of how you proceed. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Honourable Minister. Honourable DG from the department, Nonkubela, do you want to have any additions to opening comments from your side before I invite Mr. Rudy Dix from the Office of the Presidency, Head of OB, DG?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Honourable Chair, and also to honourable members on the platform. I'd like to also greet the Minister and the colleagues also from both presidency as well as the department, and we're also joined by CETA. Chair, we don't have, safe to say what the Minister has said, perhaps from a structural perspective, to allude to the fact that the President has established an IMC, of which then the Minister chairs, and it is supported by the Interdepartmental Working Group. That particular working group is chaired by the DG in the Presidency, along with the co-chairs, which would be myself, as well as the DG National Treasury. So there is an interdepartmental structured process with regards to how then we ensure the business as well as the execution of the digital transformation roadmap in South Africa. Without further ado, the IWG as well as the IMC is supported by both the DSU as well as other technical officials across various government departments. So I'd like to then hand over to Rudy Dix, to then take us through this digital transformation roadmap, which I do believe that it's a great milestone towards then moving the country forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rudy Dix. Can we invite you, the head of Operation Vulindlela in the Office of the President, for your opening remarks and then lead us through how the presentation will be done. Mr. Kule Duma, is Mr. Dix on the call?
Perhaps Rudy's occupied. Chair, can I then invite Kule?
Thank you, DG, and good morning, Honourable Chair, the Honourable Members, Minister, DGs, and our colleagues in the department. As indicated, my name is Kule from the Project Management.
My apologies, Chair. I had a connection problem with my laptop. Sorry, Kule. Honorable Chair.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Rudy Dix. We really want to hear your opening comments as the head of Operation Vulindlela, so that honorable members, as we sit to listen, receive your presentation. This is something that's very close to the heart of the committee, particularly the role of the DSU, which sits within the presidency under Operation Vulindlela. And I think we really look forward to you giving us context about why is the DSU sitting there. And then obviously, as you will hand over to Kula in terms of then what is the progress around the digital transformation reforms that OV has initiated.
Absolutely, Chair, and thank you again. My apologies, I had connection problems with my laptop, so I'm just quickly connecting with my phone temporarily, and I'll join it once I reboot that. But as you've asked, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, Minister, and DG, colleagues, correctly so, the digital transformation falls under the Operation Vulindlela program. Operation Vulindlela program was, of course, an initiative between the Presidency and National Treasury, launched in 2020 October as a response to the COVID crisis, and as part of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, Honourable Chair. The focus of OVI was, of course, to unlock, or in a sense, unblock much of the critical areas that were in our control. And our focus was on the 5 key network sectors that we felt was important. That was energy, electricity, logistics, water, visa reforms, and telecommunications. What's of interest, of course, to this portfolio committee during the 6th administration, one of the key outcomes was, of course, the ability for us to move as quickly as possible to shift from analog to digital and to manage that switch off with the department. More importantly, of course, the ability for us to be able to finally auction the spectrum to allow greater and enhanced investments both in 4G and, more importantly, 5G technologies by the MNOs. Operation Vulindlela Phase 1 came to an end at the end of the 6th administration, Honourable Chair, and we had really then relaunched Phase 2, which was adopted in May in this year, by Cabinet. And Phase 2 really took forward 4 of the regional areas, that is electricity reform, logistics, water. The Visa 1 is, in a sense, complete, as the department has now officially launched the electronic travel authorization. You will see we've added 3 additional reforms, Honourable Chair. The first, of course, is the spatial inequality. The second area is, of course, the area related to local government. And this one in particular is to give a sense of the digital transformation roadmap and the work that we've done thus far, including updates that are there. So Operation Vulindlela is quite a critical and important part of government program to try and unlock and ensure ultimately what we want is inclusive growth and development. And that's what it is all about. With that sort of quick introduction, Honourable Chair, let me hand over to Kule. He's the Chief Director in my unit and responsible for driving the digital transformation roadmap under the leadership of the Minister, of course, and the IDWG, which is the Interdepartmental Working Group chaired by, of course, the DG in the Presidency, DG Nonkobelo, Jordan Diani, and, of course, DG Dr. Duncan Peterson, the DG for National Treasury. Over to you, Kule.
Thank you, Rudy, and thank you to the Minister and the DG. And I'd like to greet the Honourable Chair and the Honourable Members. I hope the presentation is visible. I'll jump, Honourable Members, into the presentation and just give a little bit of the background as to the reason why we thought that the reforms were quite critical, especially under Operation Vulindlela, of course, working with the minister and the department. As we know, digital transformation in this area is a constantly evolving area of work, just given some of the technology innovations, and governments have been traveling this journey for some time, since in many instances the early 90s, where it was really around how do you have a basic online presence, especially from the type of departments. When we moved into the early 2000s, it was really about how do you offer online services that save people time, and then also make sure that we're communicating to the citizenry. And lastly, the area that we're in, especially when we look around at developing countries that have the imperative to develop not only and improve the socio-economic conditions of their people, we're seeing the fact that technology becomes an enabler of the improvement of those particular conditions. And so we think about how do we use technology in a manner that is, one, user-centric, speaks to where people are, is able to be scalable. So we move away from the situation where each department works for itself and really doesn't think about a whole government approach. And then, of course, how do we make sure that the technologies we're using are scalable, are interoperable in the sense that they're speaking to other government systems, and able to be reused, so that ultimately we're also able to save the resources of the citizenry and government going forward. This really brings us to an incredible piece of work that has been undertaken in places like Brazil and India and many other parts of the world. Estonia has also been mentioned, which is around this idea of digital public infrastructure. In the same way that you would think about roads and electricity, we need to think about the kind of digital components in the same way. Of course, this committee is well versed with the importance of data and hardware and what that enables. But really, the focus of the roadmap in large part is around what we call the shared infrastructure or the soft infrastructure, which is namely that digital identity, the payments, and the data exchange that the minister spoke about. And we'll dive into that a little bit. If those are able to work together and across the government system, meaning that each department doesn't have its own payment system, own data, digital identity system or data exchange system, it means that we can offer seamless services to citizens, and we're able to actually track how those citizens are affecting their lives, and also be able to recommend new services on the basis of information that we have of those particular citizens. There are places around the world where there has been immense, I think, economic value as a result of this. In Brazil, the ability to invest in digital public infrastructure has saved about $1 billion in that particular in that state. But also, I think more importantly, we've seen through the adoption of a single platform for government services, the gov.br, which has hundreds of services, that it is now easier for a Brazilian mother, father, son and daughter to be able to get a conditional cash grant that helps improve their educational health outcomes, and you're able to track that. So a child that gets the grant then has better health outcomes and better education outcomes. If we look at India, for example, 500 million people that use the UPI, which is India's digital payment system used from rural areas to informal settlements across the country, the use of digital money that not only helps the government and the citizenry more generally be able to understand how much money is moving in the economy, but also at the same time allows small businesses, especially those that were not covered by traditional lending practices and banks, to be able to access financing, because we know that someone who's sitting on the side of the road who's selling, let's say, snacks and the likes is actually moving 5,000 Rand a day. And so on the basis of that, you're able to make a better decision about whether that person should be catered going forward. Now, why is it critical that we undertake this particular journey? Because the reality of the situation, and we have our learning from this in COVID-19, when we were deploying the SRD grant, which was not unique to South Africa. Many governments around the world had to figure out how to get social protection to millions of their people around the world. It challenged, I think, governments, because normally how people would access those services was through a human interface, through going to an office. But obviously, because of those COVID regulations, the need to keep people safe, we had to do it electronically. And what we found was that, even though there are pockets of excellence, many of the systems are still slow and uncoordinated. There is also the risk of duplication and fraud within the system, and very outdated systems that are there. And so what this does, even though we were largely successful, is that there are particular people that should have benefited who didn't, or it maybe took longer than it should have. But also there's a high cost of making sure we can deliver when in fact there's easier ways of doing this. So this work is really about making sure that our systems are more reliable, they're accessible, especially to people. And I think the most important one is actually reducing the administrative burden and costs. I think we all have, as citizens of this republic, have experienced a situation where we must go to a government office, stand in a long line, get our documentation in that line. But I think we can also understand more deeply so that if you're talking about a poor South African who travels from a township, takes public transport, pays money, probably uses the same grant that the state has paid them, gets there, lines up all day, and then they find out they don't have the correct documentation and they must come back and do the same thing. That's a massive administrative burden and also financial burden that we're putting on citizens. And we think that there's a better way of doing that. And so in many ways, this slide speaks about some of the challenges, especially on the administrative data sets. If you look at just the social data sets, whether they sit at SASSA, the Department of Social Development, Stats SA, or whatever the case, these are siloed, about 15 different data sets that some speak to each other, but many don't speak to each other. And if you were able to connect these, and all of these sit in government, so these is information that citizens have already given you, you would have what we call a 360 degree of the citizen, a better view of the citizen, so that when the citizen goes and applies for a service, they don't have to fill in another form when that information already exists within the government system. While we've talked about reform, the reality of the situation is that South Africa is endowed with a lot of good legislation, we believe, especially when it comes to digital transformation, especially from the beginning of democracy. And so this is just to highlight that there's really a lot that we can build on, whether that is the national data and cloud policy, the digital payments roadmap that is already starting to be taken forward, the digital economy master plan. There's really a lot of, I think, good work that one can build in. This work, while there'll be areas of reform, perhaps legislative changes, regulation changes, the reality of the situation is that it is more about the implementation and leveraging the existing policy framework in order that we can move. I think what the slide really does very quickly is just maybe highlight some of those complexities that I spoke about earlier. I mean, if you compare us, and I think we've been quite intentional not to compare us to the developed world, even though we think we can match them if we really want to. But if you look at developing countries, whether it's India, it's Brazil, in the continent, the likes of Kenya, especially in East Africa, we can see that we are not performing as we should when it comes to the maturity of our GovTech, even our e-government index, especially from the likes of the UN. And certainly, I think we're even doing less when it comes to digital public infrastructure and making sure that all of these components are connected going forward. There's a number of reasons for this. I think the challenges are well known perhaps in this committee. The processes, the mechanisms, organizational mandates, all of those things are things where, perhaps some reforms are necessary. Technology, of course, is key to it. But the reality of the situation is that, having spoken with people who have implemented this in other settings, it is always people, right? It's the skill sets of people with, who are using the technology, people inside the government system. But also, when you are saying that the government departments must think about a whole government approach, it is a massive change management process. People have done things a particular way for a very long time. And the reality is that while an IT officer in a particular government department might think that it is imperative that the service that they they offer speaks to the needs of a particular department, the reality of the situation is that the citizen looks at us as one government and expects us to offer a service in that nature. And so it really brings us to the roadmap, as the DG and the Minister had indicated, and which was approved by Cabinet in March 2025, and really lays out some of the key objectives when it comes to the next 5 years of implementation, what the key projects are, and then also what are the enabling factors going forward. The reality is that if you look at the roadmap, which we'll speak to, it's really about leveraging existing work within the government system, and then making sure that there is better integration so that we can actually get to a particular outcome that brings these services closer to citizens going forward. When we think about who we're delivering for, we think about the NDP 2030, and in there is the articulation of Thandi, perhaps the South African citizen that we must always think about. And of course, if we think about what we want to deliver, there is opportunities in education and training. So, for example, leveraging those digital tools to ensure that if Thandi were to apply for schooling opportunities, that she's got a digital document wallet that has a matric certificate, ID, and all. She doesn't have to keep going to a police station to get it stamped multiple times, use a lot of money trying to get onto taxis, having to track these physical documents. All of these can be made available to the education institution she's applying to, or the various bursaries. NSFAS comes to mind and the likes. The same is also in terms of entrepreneurship. She gets a degree. We understand that she comes from a particular background, and could you use, for example, AI-powered job matching, as we've seen in other parts of the world, to link her to job opportunities in government and beyond, and then also through her digital ID, it means no paperwork, no red tape, because we know who we are. We have existing information. This could also be extended to health and well-being. In places like the UAE, for example, you get you get reminders in terms of when you have to go see a practitioner, go to the clinic, and also, given the records that the state has on hand, especially the Department of Health, you're also able to say that if you need more checking than, let's say, the average citizen, especially if you've got some of those conditions. And then the idea is that all of this should really be had through a single digital platform. We found that there are countries that have, each department has had their own digital platform, and it has actually been quite a mess. And more countries are moving towards having a single platform where a citizen can interact, where they don't have to have multiple logins, passwords, and the likes. And there's actually one place that they can go and access this information. It really brings us, I think, to what we call for us the South Africa stack, or the technologies that will be key. The first one, the data exchange, and I'll speak to this in a bit, which really allows us to share data and information that citizens have given us in government harmlessly. So, for example, if one were to apply again for a SASSA support or some social protection, a government department can instantly, at very little cost, ask for that information from another department that might have your information, be it Home Affairs or whatever the case. At the moment, it's not an instant thing, and it often costs more money than it should. Digital payments, I've spoken about. It's about reducing the cost of our ability to pay people, especially the likes of the grants, but also at the same time, the ability for person-to-person payments or enterprise-to-enterprise payments, especially within the informal sector. The digital identity, which builds off our existing smart ID, is really around making sure that when you access these services, we know who you are and therefore able to offer you a better service, but also it reduces the fraud. So you don't have a situation where a person is applying for a government service 10 times using different digital identities or different forms of identity. And then lastly is just all of this then finds expression within the digital services component, which is what South Africans will be interacting with on a daily basis. The idea, the long term, beyond 2030, is really to build what we call a life cycle of services from the day that you're born to cradle. There are services that are an offer the example that I always give is that if my wife and I were to have a baby tomorrow, you onboard that at the hospital. They know who the parents are. They know where we live. And when that child must go for immunization, notification is sent similar to your SARS e-filing. And the child is able to get those necessary shots. When schooling comes up, it is not a situation of standing in a long line with many documents, trying to find them. All of that is ready available, and it makes the process even more seamless. And you can take that to its natural conclusion going forward. There are a number of key initiatives that we need to highlight that are articulated in the roadmap. The first one, of course, is the functional digital ID and the universal biometrics. Currently, we have the smart ID, which has your fingerprints, your retina, all of those things. And so it's a matter of just building on top of that. And when you access that service, we can actually verify that you are who you are. And then, of course, we talked about a digital wallet, which is maybe similar to what maybe many honorable members might have on their phone, which is when they leave their house, they have a banking card. They're able to tap that thing. But imagine this, that if you had that, for example, and you had your ID, your driver's license, a whole bunch of critical documentation that a citizen requires to access services. The data exchange I've spoken about, but really the key thing there is that even as policymakers, it allows us to have, I think, a more dynamic view of the changing considerations and I think appetites of citizens. Citizens are constantly dynamic, and we still make policy as if they are the same people that were there in 1995 or 2000 or so on. And this is a massive portal in that. The digital payments, as we've said, making sure that they're instant, they're effortless, they're cost effective, and also they're safe, because there is a cost of carrying cash. We understand that there's still going to be the role of cash in the economy for some time. And that we get, but certainly we've seen settings where the inequalities are high, where there is an inequality in terms of access to data and the likes, but people are still using digital money. And East Africa, for example, on the continent, is perhaps some of the leader in that, where people easily transact using their cell phones and very basic for cell phones to do that as well. And we think it's something that we can leverage. And then finally, making sure that the trusted channel is zero rated so that people can access it. And then, of course, internally in the government system, making sure that we have what we call an integrated human resource management system. Each department still has their own human resources system. And in fact, we should be one government, and that helps save costs. If we really look at this is really a whole government approach, and I think it's important to really emphasize that. The first one is to say that, on digital identity, given the mandate, the Home Affairs really leads with that, with support from National Treasury and the South African Reserve Bank. And again, that work is underway. In terms of the data exchange, National Treasury leads with Stats SA, of course, working very closely with SASSA. Digital payments, that sits largely at the Reserve Bank, but of course, from a policy perspective, National Treasury leads. And then also on digital services, the Department of Communications and Digital Technology, the Department of Public Service Administration, and then the Digital Services Unit in the Presidency. The role of the Digital Services Unit in the Presidency is a coordination role. It is not meant to, I think, duplicate any existing work or structures within the government system. The reality of the situation is, having gone to those countries that we spoke about and trying to understand how they drove what is a very complicated change management process, one of the first advice that we got was that it was quite key that kind of coordination mechanism sit in the center of government, because as we know, departments have difficulty listening to other departments in some instances. So that really becomes one of the key mechanisms as well. When we come into the benefits of the key initiatives, I've spoken to this to some degree. But for example, if we look at India's ADHA system, for example, they didn't have a national ID system until 2017, we saw that they were saving the Indian government about $12 billion in fraudulent benefit claims. Now, we're a smaller country, but certainly I think it's a good example to use. Brazil, we've spoken about the savings of IT systems of about $1 billion, especially when the data exchange was introduced. The payment system cost about $4 million in Brazil to develop, but there's a cost savings in the economy about 5.7 billion. Also, just the amount of fraud that it reduces is quite key. And in having one central platform moves us away from having a huge amount of websites, duplicative apps and systems and services, and that also in itself cuts not only the amount of resourcing the government is putting in, but at the same time reduces also the manual work that we have to do as a government and also people in terms of navigating all of these sites. I've spoken in some sense about the Digital Services Unit. It sits in the presidency under OV. I think it is really to aid that coordination and implementation. It is to work, of course, with the various IDWG work streams. The DG had spoken about the interdepartmental working group as well, and departments, of course, responsible for their own systems and policy. It is meant to be a small team of people who are supporting departments, but also where need be, also making sure that those areas that are not being picked up by departments we're running with. Those things that also are more South Africa Inc., beyond just one particular department, there'll also be a particular role that the DSU plays there as well. And then, of course, if we look at the structure, it's still being built. It's really about making sure that you have that technical ability, the ability to have someone who's running with partnerships, operations, and also looking at some of the technology components as well going forward. Sorry if I can. Here, in terms of the structure, we've spoken about that, about why it's important that it sits within the presidency. There are a number of examples around the world. Brazil, also that coordination mechanism. It's not the builds mechanism, but rather and it is not the procurement mechanism, but rather the coordination mechanism sits in the center. That is also done in the Republic of Turkey. Our neighbors in Zambia also themselves in the SADC region have a similar model. And then, of course, also in places like Argentina, where they've made some important strides. In terms of the background here, just to emphasize again a whole of government approach, the Department of Communications and Digital Technology plays that important role of coordination and implementation, especially on the e-service, the enablers, but also the coordination of the IMC and the IDWG as a whole. The presidency, of course, we've spoken about that to some degree in terms of the Department of Finance funding, but also running with the data exchange. And then there are other key departments like Home Affairs and the digital identity, social development, which becomes quite important because they become a use case for much of the implementation, given the fact that we want this to have a very real impact on the millions of South Africans that are dependent on our social protection programs, but also we must do it in a way that has the necessary guardrails and safeguards so that we are not risking any problems. Higher education is also quite important, just given the amount of people that are there, and then of course basic education, where I think the digitization of key documents becomes quite key. Now, we've spoken to some length about the various governance mechanisms inside, so I would not spend too much time there, but this is just to say that all of this and the various components of technology that are being developed is to make sure that we have that seamless integration that citizens are able to use. Now, the roadmap is we've been implementing the roadmap for some degree. The idea of 2025 was that it was always supposed to be a year where we were setting some of the, let's say, key areas of delivery, setting them up. And then, of course, the idea was that in 2026, 2027, 28 and beyond, that some of these things were going to come online. But we're happy to indicate that there has been some successes. Of course, the adoption of the roadmap is an important one. The various governance mechanisms that are working, the establishment of the digital service units from a coordination perspective, the Mzansi Exchange, which is the data exchange layer that allows us to move information across government quickly, is now a pilot has been launched. It is working closely with the likes of SASSA and SFAS to make sure that we can actually start to test it. And then the other one is that the payments ecosystem modernization work through the South African Reserve Bank also working well. A lot of that work was actually dependent on the South African Reserve Bank's 50% acquisition of PayShap, which allows for seamless services, and we understand that the Competition Commission has given their thumbs up there. There are a number of modernized gov.za websites under development. A self-service mobile app prototype is now up and running. It is real, and it's really about how we, I think, make sure that we're scaling it up into next year so that it is in people's hands. There is alignment that has taken place with the likes of the electronic travel authorization by the Department of Home Affairs to make sure that even though it is working independently now, but at a longer term, it integrates into that self-service mobile application that will be in the hands of all citizens. And then also exploring what partnerships look like, including within government. Of course, CETA plays quite an important role, but also including the likes of the CSIR, but also looking beyond. And when you talk about partnerships, we're not talking about contractual relationships, because a big part of the roadmap is also about building capacity within the state to execute. The reality of the situation is that the state does not have the amount of professionals, especially in an IT environment, that it requires. We need a lot more, and the country as a whole needs a lot more. So building that capacity is an important aspect of it. However, we also recognize that we're not working in a siloed ecosystem. We have a big both civil society and private sector, which is quite advanced in their thinking around digital technologies and how do we leverage some of that going forward. To bring it to identity as well, there's I'll just highlight a few things here. That is just to say that we expect that the functional digital ID will really come into play early next year. Again, as a country, we actually have a bit of an easier way of getting to it because we already do have an ID system which covers 99.8% of the population. And then in addition to that, also we have the Smart ID system, which has many of those biometrics. So making sure that the rest of the citizenry gets that Smart ID is quite important, and that's an important enabler of making sure that we can get to the Smart ID system. There is work that Home Affairs is taking across where they're continuing to align with various departments onto the role of the Smart ID. The SARB is also playing an important role in terms of making sure that they are building a secure digital wallet. I spoke about the importance of the wallet in terms of holding the documents. And then, of course, there is some prototypes about linking that piece of work to the self-service mobile app so that it becomes a reality for people going forward doing that. As we look into 2026, it will be quite important to use the Smart ID in various pilots that look at job search, that look at other verified credentials that will be linked to your Smart ID. So that means linking your driver's license, your matric certificate, all of that to your Smart ID, so that if your Smart ID is used and it's scanned, you know that all of those documents actually exist going forward as well. But the big focus, of course, as you will see across this update slide, is just making sure that we're first focusing on social protection, and it's linked to education outcomes and also employment outcomes going forward. On the data exchange, we've indicated that the pilot has been launched. A big piece of work here is just making sure that the various legal frameworks are in place, even though we've been able to move very quickly with the likes of SASSA now also with NSFAS who will come on board. Other departments are just need that kind of governance framework, various data sharing agreements, and clear rules about how these are going to be used and how those safeguards. And when we talk about safeguards, we're just talking about being POPIA compliant, making sure, of course, that people's data is safe going forward. So a lot of that work has started where perhaps, even though the outcome is now in Q2 2026, is just making sure that we are also linking it to the enrollment of learners. Again, pilot phase, not something that would start in Q2, but just an acknowledgement of how critical the data exchange will be, especially in the onboarding of students to study, but also in their day-to-day lives. The third one is really around payments. We've spoken here about the fact that the SARB, of course, backed by National Treasury, leads much of this work going forward. Some of the key things to really highlight, especially as it comes to 2026, is making sure that we can build that enterprise or government to people system, payment system for the child support grant and the SRD 370 grant. This is a priority for us, and already that integration work between the work that the SARB is doing, the work that is being led on the digital ID in Home Affairs, is that integration is actually starting to happen, because as we recognize, we make payments to 26 million South Africans, and if you can actually get this right, it means that it is seamless, it is easy to do, but also at the same time, we've got a central government-owned payment system that is cheaper for government to operate. And it also speaks to this thing of data sovereignty. Much of our key digital infrastructure is still owned by the private sector, and it becomes quite important. Now, we're not saying that we're against the private sector. All that we're saying is that it is quite key that that key infrastructure is owned by ourselves as the state, obviously as a custodian on behalf of the South African citizenry. But certainly the private sector can build on that. And it really becomes about building payment gateways for other use cases, including the DigiGov, which is that integrated human resource system that can be used within the government system, and then also extending it to other use cases as well. On digital service, as we've indicated, a pilot for the mobile app is there. Linkages, of course, the first services that we foresee around grants and labor components as well. And then, of course, just making sure that we bring some of the key services that can be tested onto the system by the December of this year. And we've started working with some of them, but scaling them up into 2026 as well. Making sure that we're also, because while the app is important, the websites also have a particular role themselves. So making sure that we have one integrated website. I mean, if you really go into many other countries, government portal, the look and feel, whether you're dealing with the Department of the Treasury or you're dealing with the DCDT, it all looks and feels the same, and you only have to log in once, and then you can really access a plethora of services. And we started working with GCIS as the owner of the gov.za platform to move that. We've already got existing what we call squads, technical squads that are starting to integrate systems going forward. The idea, as we've said, is to make sure that we can launch that platform come Q2 2026, make sure that we zero rate the platform, and we're happy to say that the application to ICASA around zero rating that platform has already been made. And then I think the big one to really monitor for this committee is that as we go into Q4 2027, we really want to be looking at about 20 priority services across government that are in the hands of citizens through a central platform going forward. And then to have a complete migration of all government websites into one integrated gov.za platform, which is also aligned with the app, is going to be quite important. This again is just to speak about the app because much has been said about it publicly. but indicated again, it really is about a single reusable service flow. And luckily, it is really, we've learned from other countries, don't have 1 million applications for government services, have one central one that doesn't confuse citizens and also saves the resources of government so that you can constantly improve this thing going forward. Again, I would implore the honorable members to look at the gov.br, which is Brazil's central app that covers services from the federal government down to the state level, down to the municipal level across Brazil, and it is used by over 100 million people every month on a month-to-month basis to access a plethora of services. It did not start as a services portal that had all of those services. It started with 1, 2, 3, 4. You build the trust. You constantly improve, and then you really get to that level. And for us, it's a good example because it is, of course, a peer country, as we all know. So at the moment, we're running the pilot. As we look into Q1, have a limited public release, especially after April, that looks at whether it is on the social protection services, the employment aspects as well, integrating some of the work that's happened through sayouth.mobi, and then of course NSFAS becomes quite key, and then moving into Q2 of the financial year next year, looking at a particular public launch, making sure it's zero rated, and then from 2026 to 2027, really focusing on those 20 priority services that are key for South African citizens. And then the last thing I'll just say here, Chairperson, is that before the roadmap began, we were working with partners to interview South Africans, whether in rural or urban settings, to see what are the services that they think would be most essential for them. It's an important thing to state, because then the roadmap is not just led by officials in government who think that they can speak on behalf of citizens, but rather is led by those really critical interviews and conversations that were had with citizens around what day-to-day do they need, and what can be streamlined going forward. Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, honorable members.
Thank you, Kule, and thank you to the team. Let me just check if there are any additions from your side, Rudy, before we open the platform to honorable members to engage. Okay, honorable members, we've received a much-awaited presentation. Thank you so much to yourself, Kule, and to the team for the presentation from the Office of the President on Operation Vulindlela, from the DSU unit for your presentation. Honorable members, we now have the opportunity to engage the presentation, and I will now look for hands on the platform. Honorable Bodlani, let me recognize you first.
Shanya Vela Lab. I don't know, maybe Mr. Kule can put down the presentation. Thank you so much. Oh, I know that I'm visible, Chair. Thank you so much, Chairperson. Really do welcome the presentation. Very informative. I think this interaction with this presentation is really something that has been long overdue, and the information really does capacitate the portfolio committee. So really, really appreciate it. Chair, perhaps maybe let me start with the criticism around Operation Vulindlela. There's some who have said that the reforms are slow. What would be the response from the team on that? Do they think we are moving at a pace that is adequate, or are there any plans to really increase the momentum? And I'm not too sure if one gets a sense that there is complete buy-in of this project. I think for me, the integration of government services is something that I've always said. I've always said that having a government that works in silos is expensive, unnecessary, and just delays the progress for South Africans. But also looking at this presentation, one does not really get a sense that there is complete an absolute buy-in from the sectors. And I know we have heard about the working with the Department of Home Affairs, Department of Basic Education. But what I'm also wanting to know is, at local level, is the buy-in? Are we having conversations with, for example, SALGA as the custodian of local government? Does local government, as the interface with our citizens, understand and have a buy-in into this? And what is being done to ensure that local government understands the agency of this? Because we have said in this portfolio committee, where we have entities that are infrastructure entities telling us problems about, for example, getting way bills for the municipalities to start their work. So is the team doing enough to ensure that municipalities, as an example, really understand the importance of coordination and integration of processes? And, the story of Tanji, it's really unfortunate that in South Africa, there's really a few and far in between Tandis that we can speak of. And this is because while we speak about advancement of digital literacy, so many other people are falling through the cracks. And it really has not even become an issue of those in the rural areas, because those are the hardest hit in terms of falling through the cracks. So we are moving with so many forward, but we are also leaving behind so many other people. So what would be the response to that assertion? And how do we make sure that as we advance, the digital divide does not widen? Is Vulindlela, Operation Vulindlela, able to give us that confidence that as we advance, we are bringing everybody along? And if we are not bringing everybody along at this point, what needs to be done to make sure that we bring everybody along? That a 6-year-old is able to do coding, like in other countries that were mentioned today here, where they have clearly better coordination than ourselves. And when we talk about CIOs, we have GCIS as a custodian of chief operation officers, and this is just how I understand the process. Are we doing enough to really capacitate them? Again, do we also have their buy-in? Because this is one of those positions that really require people to really be visionaries if we are going to then take Operation Vulindlela forward. So do they have capacity? What are you doing to capacitate them? Chair, I'm not sure how Operation Vulindlela interfaces with DCDT. Are they also housed in the department? If they are not housed in the department, how is the interaction managed? And the way that it is being managed, do they think that it is sufficient? And if it is not housed in DCDT or having a representative in DCDT, what would be the reason for that? And I think on the issue of data protection, obviously we all agree that banks, for example, are private businesses. And Mr. Kule made it as a passing remark, the issue of data sovereignty. How do we balance that? If you could just unpack for us how he thinks that could be balanced, because the reality is that we had organizations such as post offices that had a great footprint within the country, but we know the story of post office. And now private sector is stepping in where government institutions could have really been better placed to really provide, fill that gap for service delivery. And what interactions, perhaps as I am on the post office, what interactions, if at all, is Vulindlela, Operation Vulindlela, doing to really support organizations such as specifically Post Bank, having a post office, I do beg your pardon, having that footprint to say we don't build up industries when others are failing. We therefore capacitate already on what the state has as in terms of infrastructure, as opposed to going to banks. And I'm just making that as an example to make my point and I really hope my point is made. With the GCIS and Operation Vulindlela, Mr. Kule speaks about a squad. And the question was going to be, how much outsourcing does Operation Vulindlela do? So let me maybe phrase it differently. The squad that he refers to is a GCIS employees. Are we making sure that the capacity remains within the state? Because this is another problem where we capacitate people and people leave. And obviously people will leave because they do want greener pastures. That is unavoidable. But for institutional knowledge and building institutional capacity, how is this being handled? What is being outsourced in our sector? And what are we doing to ensure that what we cannot do, we build that skill and bring it back into the sector? I'll stop there, Chairperson, and really thank you. But maybe as a last point, Chair, the issue. I'm not sure who's speaking, but the point I wanted to make, Chairperson, is that this week, was it this week or last week, we saw reports of low literacy rates coming from research based on basic education, that the literacy levels of South African children remain low. How, and again, to the point I was making about leaving people behind, where does Operation Vulindlela come in to ensure that those sort of things are conversations of the past? We do not talk about low literacy rates and in terms of reading, but then at some point we are going to also need to talk about low literacy rate in terms of the use of the internet and related services. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Bodlani. May I please request members to check your devices? I think Mr. Ramusi, whether you are in control of your device, but there seems to be some sounds coming from your phone, from your device. Can I please request all guests and attendees to be mindful of your devices? Thank you. Honorable Telisha, can I invite you?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Please allow me to have my video off the device. Good morning to you, Chair, and my colleagues and everyone in the call. I must admit, Chair, that this is indeed a very comprehensive and well-structured presentation on digital transformation plans. However, it is of critical concern, Chairperson, that the document repeatedly names the National Treasury as a lead or co-lead department for these critical initiatives. The Reserve Bank also is named as a key player. This then, Chair, frames digital transformation primarily as a fiscal and financial efficiency project, rather than a public service and the social justice. In my view, this raises the risk.
Honorable Telisha, can I please trouble you? Mr. Ramusi, your device is still Mr. Matubi Ramusi. Thank you. Honorable Telisha, you may continue.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm saying, in my view, this raises the risk of policy being driven by cost cutting and private financial sector interest, right? So my question then, can we remove these people, Chairperson, who are disturbing us in our meeting?
Yes, please. Can I request admin to remove?
Can they be removed? Because clearly they're not part of this meeting.
We'll do that, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. So my question then, Chair, is why is it that it's the National Treasury and the Ministry of Finance leading such a citizen-facing identity and the data project instead of departments like Home Affairs or even Social Development? Another interest is knowing the extent of the banking sector's involvement in the payments ecosystem modernization, and how will we prevent them from imposing transaction fees on recipients of grant, Chairperson. And the document also mentions a public-private ecosystem and partnerships, but it provides no detail. There's no detail on the nature of these partnerships. And this always is a red flag for me in terms of a potential corporate capture, if I may put it that way. It makes me wonder if companies like the banks, like your MTN, Vodacom, and international tech giants will be building and managing the core state infrastructure. So I would like the clarity on that, Chairperson. Why is there no detail on the nature of this partnership and public-private ecosystem that the document is talking about? And maybe, Chair, the department should maybe provide us with a full list of the prospective private sector partners, and maybe the current and the current ones as well for each work stream, right? Because we don't know. I think it is of interest that we should know, should be provided with the full list of these current and prospective private sector partners for each of these work stream. And also if maybe they can tell us what tender processes were or will be used to select these partners. And maybe lastly, Chair, it is my interest in knowing who will own the intellectual property and the data generated by these platforms. Will it be the state, or will it be these private partners that they're talking about? And maybe another one, Chair. So they speak of the vision of Thandi, right? And the vision of Thandi assumes universal access to a smartphone, reliable electricity, and the digital literacy. For millions of South Africans, Chairperson, this is not a reality. The zero-rated platforms are a good step. I'm not saying they are not a good step, but they are insufficient if people lack, devices or even the skill to use them. So I want to know maybe if there is or there are any parallel or non-digital strategy, to ensure that, the citizens without smartphones or digital literacy, they are not excluded from the essential services because we still have, people who receive grants, and they will not be excluded from education and healthcare. And maybe, Chair, beyond the zero rating, I'm interested in knowing what other investments are being made in public access points, like community centers and libraries. Do we have trained staff there to assist these people that I am talking about? And Chair, maybe my last point here is that the document is framed around the cost saving and efficiency. And this is important. I'm not saying it is not. But this is a framing that can lead to job losses, especially in the public sector. So I just want to know, Chair, if government has conducted any employment impact assessment for this digital transformation, like how many public service jobs are projected to be lost due to this automation that we are talking about, and with the billions that will be saved as projected in the international examples. I just am interested to know where they will be reinvested. Maybe let me put it like that. Where would these be reinvested? Will they be reinvested in expanding social services? Where will they go? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Telisha. Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would also like to just, and perhaps being new to this committee as well, maybe I might have missed it in the past, but I would actually like to have absolute clarity on the relationship between Operation Vulindlela and the DCDT in terms of the roles and responsibilities, to make sure that there are no overlapping mandates and we know exactly who is responsible for what and who is meant to be accountable for what, who we can hold accountable for what. Because thank you very much for the presentation to the team from Operation Vulindlela, and it gives us a lot of information. But when you look at the presentation, it's not just telling me exactly what the team from there is doing to support DCDT in terms of specifically their mandate. There's a lot that's coming out in the presentation that we get reports coming from the departments and its entities. So I think I would like a presentation that's completely just centered on what the mandate of Operation Vulindlela is as regards DCDT and what they are doing in addition to that, or to support the department, or to unblock challenges and shortcomings that we may be dealing with. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. Honorable members, let me see if there's any other members before I provide my input. I'm also a member of the committee, so I might be your acting chair, but I also have the inputs to make. So there are no further hands, so I will then provide my input. Let me first again appreciate the presentation, and maybe colleagues, for the benefit of all of us and maybe also for fellow South Africans who are listening in, surrounding Operation Vulindlela at a high level in terms of what has its been rolled, because that theme seems to be coming through. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to read an article that's intended to be 26 minutes, but it took me an hour and a half to read. It's an article written by the CEO of Yellowwoods. His name is Adrian Eindhoven, and I will share it in the group. It was a thought leader lecture at the Stellenbosch University, and it's entitled, "After Years of Decline, Has South Africa Finally Turned Around?" It was a very thought-provoking article in which Adrian, the author, places Operation Vulindlela and the interventions of the presidency at the center of this, where he argues we have turned around. And amongst the streams he talks about, and I think the presenters had alluded to that, is around energy, building our energy capacity, opening up our ports, our logistics. And what I liked about it, it was empirically backed up. He provided evidence. I mean, we all know where we are in terms of the energy space. For example, ports, which was once, I think it was 3 weeks, was the delay to berth, now reduced to 2 or 3 days, which is within international norms. Another evidence he provides was, for example, at the border posts. Previously, trucks would have to wait 19 kilometers, now reduced to 3 kilometers. And he provides, and then he obviously speaks about digitization, because that also sits within the entire Operation Vulindlela. So I thought I'd place that before this committee. I think you would then appreciate the purpose of Operation Vulindlela and why certain elements the president has taken it under his direct oversight, because he believes that these are the ones that he would want to manage to unblock the blockages that are in the system. I thought I'd place that first. Maybe let me start by saying to the team that is here, one of the areas that we have observed both during our oversight last year, particularly in the Eastern Cape and generally across the board, is what concerns us is the interoperability between different departments. And the consequence of non-interoperability or lack thereof results in duplications, results in inefficiencies. We found, for example, when we went on oversight, you would find someone from the district sending an organization or an entity to come and connect, and then somebody from provincial government is doing the same. So everybody wants to get the same school connected, but they're not talking to each other. And that costs us money, that costs us, results in inefficiencies, wastage, etc., etc., etc. And that's been a challenge. And we need to put that, I need to place that at the front of where my arguments and my inputs are going. At the center of that. And maybe then placing that in the middle of it is talking to interoperabilities, because colleagues have indicated they're trying to place how and where does the DSU fit, and how does it what is its interoperability with the department, and then I would then bring it down to two particular departments in particular. And the first one, maybe I would like to talk then to CETA. We understand that the limitations faced by CETA are well known in the presidency, and the roadmap mentions revisions to the CETA MOU. Now, given that CETA's historical role as enshrined in the law as the main IT provider for government, what functions are being taken away from CETA by this new digital architecture, especially considering the policy to decentralize key functions from CETA implemented by the minister? And maybe what is CETA's clarified mandate with this reform structure? So this is very important for us, honorable members and colleagues, because we've just received the presentation from CETA last week, in which we wanted CETA to indicate to us, Gigati, how have you improved since our emergency oversight last year in December? And we all agreed when we received the presentation that CETA has made progress and is making progress. And we also then agreed that when entities criticize CETA, we also then want CETA to be in that room so that CETA can respond. So my question then is the DSU talking to the department and through the department to CETA? Are we placing CETA at the front as a partner in this project? We've also last week received, was it last week or the week before, from CETA? They have, and I think they piloted it or they launched it at the GovTech, and I had the opportunity of creating my first digital ID, the CETA product super app, which, if I process it, seeks to achieve pretty much the same thing that the Mayamzansi app is trying to achieve. So are we duplicating? I think we need to have that critical conversation. I would say we need to have the time out and we need to talk to each other. Okay. Similarly, that is around, if we talk of digitizing of payments. Now, has a conversation started taking place with the Postbank? I mean, the Postbank does not need full banking license, as it does disburse and pay out social grants. Are we talking to Postbank as we speak to digital payments? This is an entity of ours that this committee is supporting to ultimately achieve its license. And again, in this theme of interoperability, it would be amiss of us if Postbank, as an entity under the department, is not brought on board in this journey of digitization and digital payments. They should, in my view, be able to play a critical role for us, and it will also then assist the Postbank to achieve the critical volumes and critical mass it needs to achieve, because we are always talking about where's the government-to-government business. And that's another area we've been lacking. We haven't government-to-government business has got so much of volumes to build efficiencies, to create employment, but somehow we ignore government-to-government business and we look outside, whereas we have those volumes. So I thought it would be important for me to place those two entities of the department in the middle of this conversation. And maybe then to also echo what my colleagues have echoed is maybe provide us more details around the roles and the decision-making powers of the interdepartmental working group and the digital services unit. Maybe additionally, what mechanisms are in place to promote collaboration, not only between these bodies, but also with committees like this committee. As the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies, we haven't received comprehensive briefings from the DSU, especially regarding how these mechanisms address this. The other concern will then fall around budgetary. This entire process has to be funded. What is the role of the DSU? How is it funded? And then what are the limitations where the product development has to be done? Surely it can't be sitting under the DSU, because someone has to approve the budget. If we're going into product development, implementation, rollout, take us into confidence as to what is your role, given the fact that I, maybe because of my reading yesterday, understand the role of the president is to really start and unblock these clogs. But then what is your limitation? Because there are budgetary constraints. And then that is where then does the department pick up the budget to see through this entire digital roadmap process of I'm placing the budgeting and the funding of that. An area I am beginning to have sleepless nights is the issue surrounding data sovereignty and the ownership of data. One of my biggest fears is given the geopolitical space that we are in, and we all know nobody is coming to collect the presidency of the G20. We know we are in a very delicate geopolitical space. More than ever before, data protection, data sovereignty, ownership of data is crucial. How then does the DSU, as you embark on this journey, consider the geopolitical circumstances and the important emphasis of us owning this data? Where will it be sitting? Is it going to be sitting on some cloud? Do we have that cloud? Or is it going to be sitting in some data exchange place that is stored beneath some mountains that protects the data of South Africa? We need to have this deeper conversation. It is something that we must be seized with as a committee, and certainly I believe the DSU, as you create this vision of My Mzansi app, which will have everything about Tembi or about Sizwe or Sipho from that birth to death. But where will that information be stored? Maybe then, maybe we want to pause on the DSU matter on some of the anticipated or already present challenges. The roadmap implies significant investment. Could you maybe detail the secured and projected funding for the core DPI initiatives for the next 3 to 5 years? And maybe are there any offtake agreements in place or vendor lock-in frameworks that are tied to such commitments? Maybe let me pause at this stage and hand back just to make sure that I've covered the issues surrounding. Oh yes, one very important element, and this was during my my visit to India in April, representing the committee at the Global Tech, in which, as you rightly pointed out, India is being at the forefront of the DPI journey, being able to bring in almost 1 billion of their population in this entire digital ID, digital payments, to this extent that if you go to an honorary vendor, there's digital payments taking place and they all have digital ID. But that didn't come overnight, and we know that was precipitated largely because there was a gap in the system of India, and that was largely around social grant payments. There was a gap in that it was not reaching the intended recipient. And their entire Aadhaar and the DPI spoke to that particular problem, almost like a Lego system. The entire DPI is built on a Lego. So they spoke to a problem statement, the leakage in the in the social grant, and they've overcome that, and now they're running an amazing system. But it was met with resistance from people around digital ID, and that was the point I was going to make. This vision of digital ID, digital payments, etc., is there. But one of the challenges we face is getting South Africans to buy into that vision. Have we started tilling the soil, softening it, creating the awareness around its benefits so that we can mitigate the conspiracy theories that emanate, that government wants to take away our money, our information will be controlled, we become like robots? That entire media campaign needs to be managed, and maybe linked to that as we embark on the DPI. What then, in your opinion, will be this meta, what is it called, that problem that you find is consistent across the board? In the case of India, it was getting the digital ID right so that we know we are speaking to the right person when we disperse, for example, social grants. What then would you think, when we develop this roadmap, will be that problem that cuts across all our departments that maybe we would want to then address with this DPI journey? I hope I haven't been everywhere, but you kind of like been able to grasp the content, what I was trying to place before you. Honorable Shabeleng, I will now, before I invited, I said, let me allow Honorable Shabeleng. He likes to come after the chairperson has spoken. Honorable Shabeleng, over to you.
Chair, I always appreciate your
You
input,
must call him to order, though, Chair. What the honorable member is always doing is not acceptable. It shouldn't be. You must call him to order. I've been counting. I counted. It's countless times now, Chairperson.
Honorable Shabeleng.
No, I think no, Chair. No, Chair. You guys are just conflicting me unnecessarily now. Am I audible?
You assist us. Yes, you are audible.
Am I honorable? Maybe I must reserve my comments because I wasn't trying to speak after you, Chair. I just noticed that when I raised my hand because I'm in court, and as a result, I was able to even engage on this presentation. So it hasn't been easy, almost multitasking this thing. So it wasn't the intention, indeed. And Honorable Delisha, I think, is just worked up for unobvious reasons, but let me render my apologies on that one. It was not the intention, Chair, but I did actually, enjoy your summary on this part. I think two concerns maybe I must just raise up front with regards to the presentation. One, we welcome the presentation. It's good, visionary. It gives us clarity in terms of the ICT sector, where the government actually from the president's side is planning towards. It's really well welcomed. It's got really strong ambition, focus, and I do see elements of the plan from what I actually have experienced before. And I think maybe Rudy's influence and a few other people has been very strong there, because it similarly looks at government from almost a process where you want to fasten process and make sure that things happen at a project management level. This has happened before with Project Pakisa, which I was part of at some point, and Rudy was part of the Project Pakisa, where they backed up what can actually be fast-tracked in terms of unlocking the backlogs, as well as issues relating to how government can be expedient and deliver services to people and look at it from a project point of view, So I'm quite appreciative of the project in a sense that Vulindlela is looking at a similar approach and is looking at expediting and is looking at actually unlocking roadblocks and stuff. So one would appreciate that a particular approach and particular insight into the whole thing. Again, we just received this presentation yesterday, so I didn't really get interrogating onto it. Our study group hasn't been able to give input on it. So I'll just say to myself, to everybody, to say, look, one, we would appreciate the fact that if we could be given this project that has been identified in terms of project packages, what do they mean at the project packages level? Like, for instance, when we are talking about rolling out of the payment of SASSA, what does it mean in relation to the presidency in relation to what Honorable Glelisha actually did mention, that is there no conflict with regards to Treasury now being made the key custodian of rolling out, for instance, payments of SASSA grants and stuff? Wasn't this supposed to have been relegated to a post-bank environment where agreements within interstate entities can actually be happening? Issues such as digitization, digital ID, healthcare, digital healthcare records, looking at the whole digitization or e-government systems where now the government is moving from paper trail to now digitalizing everything. We're looking at, for instance, the court systems, court records, etc. We're looking at information, processes where this particular plan, it needs to be summarized in packages of ICT space packages when we're looking at it. The connectivity at schools, what does that mean? Because we already have connectivity projects like the OSA Connect and other things. We've got the rollout projects that they are looking at in terms of connectivity for broadband for schools, for TVTs, broadband for communities. Where do we locate the view and the vision of Project Pakisa in terms of structured sort of key project outcomes? Right now, it's an overarching vision of what Project Pakisa would love to do. Project the Vulindlela would like to do, but it does not give a packaged projects of saying, for instance, the connectivity crisis of South Africa's broadband crisis. This is the overarching view. What do we want to do? These are the projects that we're identifying, etc. These are the departments that will be working with us. These are the entities that will be helping us to implement. The other view we have is we would like to caution these issues of extreme over-privatization of our state. We cannot, at this level, go at the point where everything else is privatized. And whenever we're talking about projects that are government-related, particular budget-related, it's always rendered towards interest of private sector. We know some of this private sector participated in helping the president in his campaign and funding it, but doesn't mean we have to privatize the whole state and make sure that every service is taken out of the public sector's arena. It's now privatized in order to ensure that the private sector can own a chunk of government-related programs. So very, very strong. Some of these things, we are of the view that should stay and remain within the purview of the state. Your post office is there. You've got the programs around the SA Connect. You've got the CASA. You've got the likes of Centec. You've got the likes of CETA. You've got all of these entities that are doing digital technologies and solutions, etc. That should be empowered with Project Vulindlela and become the key drivers, rather than just people who are now going to now be giving away the large chunk of the value and not creating the necessary jobs or the economic impetus that we need. And the issue of our data sovereignty, you did mention on it, so I'm not going to run through to it. Let's be given a view as to, do we have data sovereignty? Is it going to be a database in South Africa, or we are going to be buying cloud space and then working with the other multinationals to actually privatize our data in the South African context of it? And then the last part of it is the project milestones. Each project must be given to us in a budget format. Already this was part of the Project Vulindlela, was already highlighted in the president's speech with regards to State of the Nation address. So now we want to see the budget line items of that particular spending on the ICT side of it and which projects, and then packaged in that whole thing. So I don't want to take too much time in really going into it, but based on what was presented, we appreciate the presentation. It was quite comprehensive, quite intensive, and it really is futuristic. It looks at ambitions that we want to see. We're just cautioning against the over-privatization of this particular program. It must be government-led, it must be state-led, it must be really national interest focused, and it must go to the bottom of how is it going to benefit our people. The social dividend for us, the really where our people benefit is where they are going to get the services, and the services how it's going to work for them. And the complexities of it, not everybody has the digital capability. How are we going to empower our people to make sure that they can work on these platforms, they can engage on it, and bring services to people in rural areas without having to burden them with waiting for years until government provides the services? I'm going to hold it on that one, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Shabaleng. Let me then hand back to the team. Maybe, Rudy, let me hand to you. And from you, you can lead the responses, and then we'll end it up with DG Nonkubela from the department. Rudy, let me hand back to you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and thanks, Honourable members, for those pertinent and pointed questions and comments. I perhaps wanted to start off, Honourable Subrathi, with your comments that you made earlier on, and I would allow the team to respond on the specific areas related to OV in the context of the digital transformation. But the way we've set up OV is particularly to try and deal with the overall coordination and the role of the presidency to play its strategic role as the center of government. Operation Vulindlela is not an implementation structure, and all its structures, even the DSU, is not an implementation structure. It's intended to be a coordinating structure and to support implementation. The implementation functions and role, Honourable Chair and members, remains that of the entities and of the line departments. That's an important and critical explanation that I have to give. That we do not want to play that role because it's not our mandate. Mandates are that which is provided in legislation or in various policy documents that, of course, are adopted by you as honourable members, and give that impetus to the different departments. So ours is to do that, but it's also quite critical that it's not simply just the coordinating roles. Ours is to be able to ensure, as you see, with the timeframes that we do and quite strict monitoring and evaluation tools that we have in our an array of different accountability measures, that for us accountability is quite an important part. So while we coordinate, while we provide support for implementation, mobilize resources and capacity where there is a shortage on that, ours is to provide that leadership, but also to ensure that we provide that level of accountability to entities and departments. And that's quite an important part in the success of the work that we've done. We provide quarterly updates, and perhaps not a matter for this portfolio committee, but certainly a portfolio committee is able to look at Operation Vulindlela website, and we can share that. You can see the transparency that we do provide on the quarterly performance of each of the distinct 7 programs in relation to what was adopted and committed to by the national government, of course. And that's an important part of it. For us, digital transformation is no different. It is, again, a partnership role that we've got to play, and that the implementing departments, even DSDT, as an important part of the digital transformation roadmap, as a distinct function and role that is defined within its regulatory mandate. But let's use, for example, digital identification. The Minister of Home Affairs has specific legislation assigned that is responsible for him or her to be able to implement that. Similar for the Department of Transport, the minister there also has distinct and specific legislation assigned to her or he that will do that. And I thought that sort of distinction is quite important, because sometimes this can be quite a gray area, Honourable Chair, where people think that the presidency is running everything and implementing everything and usurping the mandates. That's certainly not the case. And this is precisely why I think for us coming here, led by Minister Malatsi, the DG of the department and us, is to show that distinct and important integrated role from the way that we got to see how Operation Vulindlela is implemented. And as I'd offered to you, Honourable Chair, I think it would be useful. I thought Honourable Chabaleng's point at the end, perhaps it would be useful for the portfolio committee to have a separate session, and again at your time and whenever, to get a better sense of how Operation Vulindlela actually operates, and some of the successes, some of the challenges, some of the misconceptions as well, right? Because I thought when you were doing your introductory note to this, Honourable Chair, Subrathi, I thought that was an important part when you were quoting someone, and maybe some honourable members may not feel happy if you quote the business person. There are many others that we can quote as well. But I thought perhaps just an offer from myself as the as the lead on Operation Vulindlela, or the co-lead on Operation Vulindlela, that we are offering to be able to deal with, not only understanding how it works, but understanding the methodology, the approach, so that honorable members have a good sense of why this is such an important and pertinent way of trying to resolve a national interest matter like digital transformation, and ensuring that we create an inclusive society using digital means and methods to be able to ensure that has happened. I thought perhaps if that's okay, Honorable Subrathi, that would be a useful segue for Kule and the rest of the team to come in and answer those specific questions that honorable members have, for example, pointed to in relation to the actual slide deck presentation. Thank you, Honorable Subrathi.
Thank you, Rudy. Kule, can I invite you?
No, thank you so much, Honourable Chair. I hope I'm audible, and I'd like to thank the honourable members for the questions that they have asked. I think Rudy has covered in some way how Operation Vulindlela works, and we obviously try to take that way of working into this particular piece of work, especially around digital transformation. The only thing that I'd add, Honourable Chair, and I think it really speaks to some of the questions that had come up from some of the honourable members, is that the approach is a different approach to how we normally do things in government. I spoke quite a bit about the fact that where we are in terms of implementation is a lot on prototyping, thinking through, and we've called it a sandboxing approach, which is a kind of technology terminology, which means that you test different ways of working. And so while, of course, the mandate sits with the department, it sits there, we're working with the departmental teams to ensure that, for example, we are testing technology X versus technology Y in the best way possible. So, and in some sense, the DSU will have a role in that, but ultimately, when it comes to issues of procurement and the likes, the departments handle that because naturally they have the mandate to do so. The second thing that I think the DSU also does advise on, because this becomes, I think, really the critical pillar, is the issue of standards. And I must state that it is an advisory role because you must have common standards across government if you're going to support DPI going forward. One department cannot have its own set of standards versus another, because when you try to integrate those particular systems, the reality of the situation is that it will not work and it will undermine the vision at the end of the day. So that's also another area in which there is some advisory support in that regard. Just to maybe go through some of the issues around the buy-in. If we look at the buy-in, as mentioned by both the Minister and the DG, we do have the IMC that has, I think, more than 10, 12 or 15 ministries that are represented there. So at a political level, certainly, the objectives of the roadmap are understood. And of course, some of the key departments that have been identified in the first phase also the second phase are there. At the IDWG, the Interdepartmental Working Group, which is led by the DG and the President, co-chaired by the DG of the DCDT and in the DG of National Treasury, you have multiple departments and multiple entities that are there across the government system, so that you can there's an understanding of what this work is going to entail, and at which point it will affect a particular departments going forward. The second one is also around the issue of the municipalities. I think it is quite an important thing. We thought it was quite critical because we're also trying to manage expectations. We're also mindful that we are building a plane as we fly it, in some sense, that we needed to start with national government services, because that is maybe in some instances where we have influence in the sphere. Get those done very well, and then the idea is that we then cascade. It doesn't mean, however, that we're not engaging with municipalities, we're not engaging with provinces. One of the key, I think, enablers of some of this work is really through the the Government IT Officers Council. They've played a central role. Not only are they aware of the roadmap, but they have also, in its instance, influenced the roadmap and also been able to take it into their respective environments as well. So we've had a number of sessions with provinces, conversations with provinces, providing advice where possible about what is coming. The idea, as indicated, is that it should support municipalities, it should support the provinces, but for the sake of being able to show progress against a dedicated program, we've started with national government going forward. I think the question really has covered the question about the interface with the DCDT. We think we have quite a close relationship with the department. Of course, through the IDWG, through the IMC, there is constantly the meetings between the two departments, and in fact, in some of the areas where they're a little bit more technical, you've also got the involvement of departmental staff and officials there as well. So we would say that the interface is actually quite good. I think as it speaks to the department is of course responsible for the implementation of some of these aspects. So I will get to the issue of CETA, but CETA is a prime example of that. The second one is also the policy making aspects as well, as it relates to supporting the DPI agenda. So the presidency and the DSU certainly does not create any policy that is driven by the particular departments as well. Perhaps where there are areas where there's kind of close collaboration is around particular reforms going forward. So, for example, one of the things that we are, and I think this covers one of the questions about the role of CETA, the mandate. One of the things that we've engaged CETA on this, so it's not anything that is new in this forum, is we want to understand in the long term, because we understand that CETA and other institutions, including the CSIR within government, have a critical role in terms of delivery. What is the institutional, I'd say, framework that is going to be required and configuration that is going to be required to actually drive this change beyond 2030? That is a piece of work that will be undertaken by the department, but certainly we can bring in particular support. And of course, we can also argue that just given the broader DPI roadmap, there are particular questions that we would like answered from that particular piece of work. The post bank, one of the first interactions we had with some of the key departments and entities was really with the post bank on an understanding. Certainly for us, there is a role that has to happen through payments, as it would happen through, I think, any other critical entity, especially that has accounts with millions of South Africans. The only thing that we do just need to make sure that we get further alignment there, because when the roadmap was drafted at the time, there was the difficulty of the fact that at the time the post bank was under business rescue, and there was the thought about the implications of if you were building things within the post bank, would it belong to the state or would it belong elsewhere? We're now out of that phase, and I think we can have a more kind of a discussion that takes us towards the post bank being responsible for some of those entities. But it is important to just state quickly, especially when it comes to payments, similar to Home Affairs or anything else, that the payments ecosystem, especially its modernization and its management, does sit with the South African Reserve Bank. That is a mandate that we cannot change at this point. And so a big part of this work, or similar to resourcing, is really about how do you work with the existing mandates, but also at the same time leveraging also the budgets that exist within those particular departments as well. Now, as it relates to the issue of literacy rates, I'm just going through the questions as I had noted them down. We agree. The roadmap's role, or the work that we're trying to do, is not to claim that we're going to solve for everything that is digital. within a 5-year period, because there is a long road. But really, just going back to some of the questions and the comments that were made by in the last question, it is to really answer one thing, and that thing is that the experience that South Africans have with digital services is a very mixed experience, and I'm putting it lightly when I say that. The experience that South Africans have when they're accessing whether it is key documentation or applying for services is, I think, an experience that we all can agree can be improved. And we know, whether it is the work that's been done by the GCIS or multiple partners outside of governments, that there is a trust deficit between the services that we offer as government and citizens. So ultimately, the ultimate aim of this work is to make sure that we can transform that experience, that, I keep speaking about seamless services, that when a South African goes online, whether it's on an app or it's in another platform as well, that they're able to get their things done quickly, because ultimately what that does is that it actually can send a clear message to citizens that services can be seamless, they can be efficient, and in fact, the trust matrix between them and government increases. That is really the thing that we're trying to answer for. Unlike, Honorable Chair, unlike India, we were not starting from scratch. Many of these things aren't starting from scratch. We've got a ID system that covers many South Africans. It's really about getting it digitized. So some of those challenges that India were facing are not necessarily challenges that we're facing. But I think what is similar to India and maybe other parts of the world, including Brazil, is that we think that our social protection systems can work more efficiently, and certainly we think that people can access those services without necessarily going to a central government platform. There was a question about what is the implications for South Africans that do not necessarily have smartphones, and I think one of the things that we want to do is make sure that there is an integration with the USSD, so that will continue to play a role. It also does not mean, for example, so on the most basic of phones, people can still access their services. The second one, of course, is that it does not mean that if you are digitizing government services, that the role of the offices of government offices necessarily does not, it doesn't have a role. It still does. Again, when we did a bit of a tour to India, one of the great learnings for me and the things that sat with me was how they were using offices. These became places of education and they became places of onboarding, right? And the citizen made a choice whether they wanted to come there or not. And in some instances, I mean, we're not there yet, but in equivalents of puzzle shops, where, for example, there's an understanding that there might be one, smartphone per 100 people in a rural setting. You also have interfaces that allows people to access their data in a safe manner going forward. So we understand that this digital transformation is not just going to be about the soft infrastructure, but is also going to be about offices and hard infrastructure. And one of the reforms that we've taken forward, or rather pieces of work that we're taking forward, is a costing exercise between now and 2025, now and 2030, about what this is going to cost, what exists within the government balance sheet, and perhaps we might have to look at the likes of DFIs, especially within the state, that might actually support us with the implementation going forward. So this has really become a key component for us. But we thought that in the absence of, let's say, dedicated budgets, because we understand that that is a risk, we can still leverage on the existing budgets, on the existing mandates, to make sure that we move. For us, it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be an excuse for us not to make work. Just to answer the question about whether, we are moving slowly. When we got the roadmap, when we, obviously we took it to cabinet and we, took it to the various, the IMC and elsewhere, and we looked at the timelines, and then we went back to some of those countries that we were learning from. They indicated that if we were to get this done in 5 years, and we're quite confident we can, this would be the fastest implementation of DPI that has been seen in the world. So even though we talk about it, even if we talk about India, for example, or Brazil moving fairly quickly, it is quite important to mention that a lot of the background, the infrastructure, the investment in people has actually taken multiple decades. I mean, if you speak to the Brazilians, they tell you a 30-year journey. So it's not to make excuses for the roadmap, but rather to say that if we're talking about 5 years, having 20 services that includes underlining reforms, budget allocations, all of that, thinking about mandates differently, and we managed to do that 5 years, we really have moved in a particular way. Our first year was always going to be about piloting. Our first year was always going to be about socializing the roadmap within government, making sure that the governance mechanisms are working well. And I think in some sense, we've actually gone above those timelines. We've actually got working, implementable prototypes that are up and running. And next year, it becomes about mass adoption. So we think according to the roadmap, we're moving in the nature. One of the I think feedbacks we did get from Cabinet, for example, was just saying that some of the use cases and these are projects that Honorable Chabaleng was speaking about, we could bring them forward because we had some that were sitting in 2027 and 2028. And for example, working with NSFAS was one of those. We've brought those forward a little bit, and we're already working with NSFAS from now on. But again, a lot of this work is iterative in the sense that where departments are putting up their hand very quickly and saying, actually, we need the support now, we try to make the teams available. In terms of data sovereignty and how the teams actually function, the one thing that I'd like to stress with this work is that the function of the work is not to privatize, I think, the functions of government. In fact, the way that we run our data systems in government, our procurement systems in government, especially from an IT, is that we've largely privatized them. This is actually about making sure that the state can then own some of the key digital public infrastructure. So whether it is the payments layer and the work that the SARB is doing there, the data exchange, the services portal, the minimum requirement is that it is owned and driven by the state. Now, you can have aspects of procurement because you recognize that there are basic components that can be done better. Even the ad hoc system, Honorable Subrathi, has elements that works with big kind of private sector players as well, right? Even something that is as critical to the Indian government as that. So there's, but again, that is the mandate of the department to determine what it wants to do there. But you know, there is a report that has been done by the Government Information Technology Officers Council that really states that if you look at IT skills, and these are core IT skills, not adjacent, there's about 3,000 or so to 4,000 in national government that sit there. As a government, we need much more. And you can then understand why government has become, as the president once called it, a holder of contracts. So building that capacity is going to be, I think, a big part of the work that we want to do. And this brings us to how we work. So, for example, if you look at the prototype around the services app, for example, you are working with people from the relevant departments in the squads. You know, whether you're pulling people from GCIS, we work very closely with the team there, ourselves in the presidency, and any department which has an interdependency, whether that is, for example, when we are doing things around the, let's say if we work with education, for example, we would bring in the IT team there. So it is multidisciplinary teams across government, but also what we will also do as well is also bring in some people from outside that we work with that have special expertise that are also able to help us. So it is a mixed multidisciplinary team of the state, mostly the state, and then also some people who do support us, who do come in from outside as well. And that's how we plan to run it, because the idea is that there should be a skills transfer, a knowledge of skills, but also a way of working that goes across departments and doesn't just silo the way of working. Data sovereignty, that is will be led by the legislation and the and the regulations that are there, the cloud policies that exist within the country that are driven by the DCDT state very clearly what we can and cannot do. The data will be stored in South Africa, and of course, being able to finalize an MOU with our colleagues at CETA, but also we've also got our colleagues at the CSR is going to be quite important because, of course, they have the hosting capability as well. Where there are areas where you might have to work with a hyperscaler, there are also clear regulations of how you do that. That information must be stored in the country. And I think as a result of that, we've actually seen a building of multiple data centers, especially of the massive hyperscalers in the country, because we've actually set through the commercial imperative. As it relates to partnerships, the roadmap sets out, I think, very broadly that partnerships might be necessary. Of course, from a procurement perspective, again, just to stress that that is the responsibility of the departments and the implementers, that from that perspective, there might be areas where you still do have to procure going forward. But when we talk about partnerships, we're actually saying, how do you bring in how do you leverage rather the capacity, maybe some of the trust that some of the private sector companies might already have with millions of South Africans to make sure that you can move the work that we're trying to do. So, for example, an example is maybe the banks, because that had been mentioned by the honourable members. If you look at the banking apps that are used by South Africans, about 30 or so million South Africans use those every day. We also have a situation where some government services are already offered on those particular services. It's important to say that that is not a service that is owned by the banks, but rather that the bank pays the department, so the department service can be offered on those particular platforms. And so there is something to think about. Obviously, we've got the centralized platform. We want to make sure that South Africans enter through that platform. But for example, if someone is using an application or not, is there the option that they could also access via that avenue? The important thing for us is that these services are accessible, whether it is to poor South Africans or South Africans who have more access going forward. This is not a procurement relationship. It's rather about how do you leverage perhaps the trust and the avenues that other partners, even in civil society, would have to make sure that all the services are able to reach the people who they should. But also what it does is it creates a revenue model for government, because these are ultimately government systems that the private sector would be using. And there would have to be some kind of agreement as to how they pay government to use that going forward. But just to say lastly that there is, at the moment, it is still a concept within the roadmap, still quite open. We've of course been approached by multiple industries, including the telecommunications industry, that says who recognize that if we can get this right, it also means that people are using need more cell phones and whatever the case. And so the question is, we don't own mobile data operators as a state. And so we would push them to make sure that on their social responsibility, they're able to offer that 3G, 4G, 5G bandwidth, especially in places like rural areas. So there are places where business has a particular role that is aligned to their mandate, and places where the state has a role. But for us, it's not about confusing them. It's rather about how do you work with others to make sure that you can reach people in the best way possible going forward. I know I've spoken for some bit, but maybe the last one I'd like to touch on, and again, very happy to come back to this committee so that we can maybe spend a little bit more time on some of the issues, is on the how do we make sure we don't leave South Africans behind. This is something that we are also worried about ourselves, and our sense is that you will need, a big communications campaign to make sure that South Africans understand the benefit of this. For us, it's twofold, Honourable Chair. One is the fact that you have obviously a communications campaign that dispels, I think, some of the worries that are out there. Also, it's good to remind South Africans in any case that we already have forms of digitization. When you apply for an SRD 350, you are providing information in. So we've already proven ourselves the ability for ourselves to actually safeguard South Africans' data. But the second one is also to make sure that you are actually delivering something that works. Because once something works and it actually shows value in people's lives very quickly, as other services have done, I think it really does allay the fear. If something doesn't work and then it's also using people's data, then obviously people become further heightened. So I think for us, it's a dual strategy. And luckily, we live in a country that has run quite incredible campaigns. If one thinks about both the HIV, TB campaigns that were run in the early 2000s and so on, that were able to bring society around, we think it's also something that's possible. And we're slowly trying to develop kind of a communications competency that once we're ready to launch can really support the work going forward, but also is not just the responsibility of government, but also some of our partners going forward. I am not sure if I've covered all of the issues. Oh, I think the last one was just around your presentation of CETA, the role of CETA, and so on. Ours, as I've indicated, the roadmap indicates that CETA does have a role. Ours is really not to take over the role of CETA. The DSU does not involve itself in procurement. It does not involve itself in, I think, the mandates of other particular departments. We are sandboxing, and the reason for sandboxing is that when we engage with departments, we engage with entities, and they say to us, we can't do things X, Y, and Z. We say, but actually there's different ways of doing it. We've seen it around the world. We've also been able to do X. And is it possible that we align the policy, the regulations, so that we can do things in a more streamlined process going forward? Because what we tend to find is that if you are not in the detail yourself and do not have the technical expertise in the center of government, things can go wrong. And so it's just making sure that some of our advisory support is there. But I think just to allay any fears that might be there, they will be one government app. That is a critical principle for us. There will not be duplications. And two, just to say that certainly the MOU that we will be getting into with CETA, which we should finalize hopefully by the end of the month, will give clear responsibilities of who's responsible for what in terms of that particular app going forward. And in second, just to say that CETA is involved within the IDWG, the Interdepartmental Working Group as well. And so really, I think they're abreast to what the roadmap seeks to achieve and how the build is going forward. With that, Honourable Chair, because I understand I've taken much time, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kule, for your very comprehensive and detailed responses, which is welcomed and appreciated. Particularly your last comment surrounding CETA, and maybe as I invite DG to respond, I also note, DG, that the chairperson of CETA board, Ms. Senzani Modau, is on the board, as well as acting CEO, Mr. Gopal Reddy. So you might want to just be, if you consider to bring them in, that I'd leave it at your discretion as I hand back to you, DG, to maybe to lead the final comments from the department side.
Thank you very much, Chair. And perhaps then may I hand over to the Chair of CETA for any inclusion in comments on the matters that were raised. I would like to come back, Chair, and respond on some of the issues related to access and affordability, as well as the skills issue. But most of the issues have been covered, both by Rudy as well as Kule. I may hand over to the Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, DG, and good morning or actually afternoon now to you, Honourable Chair and Honourable members. I think as the DG has alluded, a lot of the issues have been responded to. I think I'll just add to the fact that there has been engagements with the colleagues from DSU through the department, and those engagements are continuing to ensure alignment in the good digital transformation strategy that has been presented this morning. I wouldn't want to add more on that, Chair. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. DG, back to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much to the Chair as well of CETA. Not that Chair. Chair, there's too many chairs on the platform. And I'm sitting on a chair. Chair, then perhaps maybe to firstly respond on Honorable Bodlani. I think the issue that she raised a concern about was the analog switch off. And immediately, I think for me, and I thought Ruth was going to talk about it, about how in the first round of operations Vulindlela, we were successful with regards to the spectrum optioning. So my response, though, is in two parts, because I think there's a sober response as well, Honorable Bodlani. So while the spectrum has been allocated, so we've freed up the critical spectrum that you would need in as far as then the 4G and 5G rollout in the country. However, it's still imperative, and I think Honorable Bodlani on this point, it's very imperative that we digitize the country. And therefore, the issue of a digital platform, as far as broadcasting, is also going to be very key. And the fact that we are still lagging behind or still sitting with analog, we are basically missing an opportunity of having more of the digital as well as social programs online, including, as I said, on these broadcasting platforms. We've seen during COVID, when we had the adverse impact with the lockdown and people not being able to go to school. And one of the designs with regards to the DTT is that you would have a dedicated educational channel. You would also have other dedicated channels like health, the issue of, and other social programs that are very key. So yes, it is important. And we would also probably even have the opportunity with regards to the integration of these government programs online as well. And then so we are working hard with all the players in as far as fast tracking the analog switch off. The issue that was raised on the SAPO partnership, as well as I think the Post Bank that was raised by you, Honorable Chair, as well as Honorable Bodlani. SAPO is a critical player in this ecosystem. I think the opportunities that we're going to get there with regards to the fact that SAPO is the only national credited institution as far as then the authentication center, as well as the trust center. So you would have seen in the partnership program that we've issued that is one of the areas that we're looking at in as far as making sure that we improve the performance of the post office in this regard. The CETA is also assisting SAPO with regards to reviving the trust center as well. So just again to illustrate that within our portfolio, the entities are working collaboratively to support each other. The issue with regards to the digital payment, Chair, it's been noted. Again, yes, the Post Bank, we will have an engagement in as far as ensuring the inclusion of it, as far as then the payment system is concerned as well. And then perhaps to address the issue that Honorable Felicia raised, the issue of literacy or digital literacy is absolutely critical. So there's a couple of issues that Honorable Felicia raised. The one part with what we're working on in government, as far as onboarding services, having an interoperable system, having a digital identity, just payment, Chair, looks the easy part. Social awareness, ensuring educated workforce within government as well as public is going to be an ongoing issue, because part of then this education, this digital literacy, fundamentally talks to even the cybersecurity. How do you protect your data online? How do you navigate all of these? Now that you're going to have a single view of the citizen, how do you ensure that the citizen is able to actually efficiently utilize that? Then there's going to be the issue, I think again, Honorable Felicia talked about on the affordability of the devices. As you would know, in the department, we're already working on that particular program. as far as affordability of devices, paper devices. Earlier on this year, you would have seen, honorable members, that after the engagement we had with National Treasury, the Minister of Finance announced the tax review with regards to the low end, sorry, let me not say cheaper, the low end smart devices. Over and above that now, that we've looked at these import duties, we are now looking at the massification of the production of these devices, or at least the assembling of them in the country. We know that there is capability in South Africa. And so now we're looking in terms of how to make sure that there's more of an uptake, especially in terms of your 4G, as well as your 5G devices to every single citizen. And so therefore, we're looking at negotiating what is the reasonable amount for that, and looking at other incentives for that. And as I said, the skills issue, we're working with various partners to assist us with regards to creating awareness at grassroots level, along with our institutions as well. Designing programs, we're also designing programs for the public servants. They also need to be reskill and upskill, and how to protect this data. We're also actually creating a new position within government departments, which is the Chief Data Officer, working with the Department of Public Service and Administration in this regard, and the GTO Council, who also they're part of the members of the interdepartmental working group. So the issue of, I think that was raised, of concern with the alignment of the respective roles and responsibility, I think Rudy spoke about it extensively, responding to Honorable Singh. But just to say that it is coordination. At times we are going to find anything with typical digitization, Chair, it's cross-cutting. So sometimes you will have to ask the question to say, is the Department of Communication the lead, simply because they the word digital, or are we an enabler in ensuring that other government departments within their respective roles and mandate actually drive this issue? But what is so fundamental for us is the central coordination, which is being driven here. Perhaps just to take a step back, it is true that the department has been leading on the e-government, Chair, probably since about 2008, if you've seen in the presentation. The challenges that we encountered was, with utmost due respect to my fellow colleagues, but there was a lack of cooperation. We were going to government departments asking them to say, we want to port these services online, and we will be encountering issues of territory. Meanwhile, from a citizen perspective, they see us as a one government. So they're expecting us to work in unison. The involvement of presidency, and this discussion has been underway since about 2018, has assisted us in as far as unlocking that particular red tape. So the cooperation, we're finding it much more easier. And therefore now that's why there's such a much more fast-track role and in execution with regards to this digital transformation roadmap. Data sovereignty is absolutely key for us. We've got the capabilities in terms of where we're storing government data. It is going to be at CETA. We're also looking at other alternatives as far as government institutions as well, in as far as keeping that data. So we've also as the department now working on a framework as to how, as government departments, we're going to share the data. As you know, we'll have to make sure that we set up the data sets and also be able to classify what that data is, a lot in line with the data and cloud policy that the department issued and cabinet approved in 2024. And then, so the last issue, Chair, relates to, the most important, Honorable Chabeleng put the money on it, or the money not. When you ask about the issue that the project milestones in the budget line, we must be open and transparent in this platform to then say, one of the challenges that we've had, because we were conceptualizing this project, and we thought year one was going to be that. until obviously we went to present it in cabinet and the president said he wants execution. And that was post the funding allocation. So now we're engaging National Treasury for adequate funding for this project going forward. So up until now, it's only been the funding that has been allocated in terms of the E&E in the respective departments. And we don't have a central budget as well as funding for the rollout of this project. So we are in the process of engaging National Treasury to ensure that there would be adequate funding in the outer years as well. And that will also assist us in making sure that as government, we preserve the issue of government sovereignty or the government having control on this project. So thank you very much, Chair. I think we've responded on all the comments and questions.
Thank you, DG, and thank you to the team once again, led by the minister who has left, and the department officials. Let's also thank the seated chair that's had an opportunity to join us, as well as to Rudy and to Kule for your comprehensive presentation and an appreciation that as public servants, as elected public servants, honorable colleagues, we have a duty to ensure that we become the voice of the people. And I really want to appreciate the diverse input that we receive from the different honorable colleagues. For example, the issues surrounding literacy, affordability of phones, and these are issues that are touching the lives of people, and it gives me the appreciation of the diversity in our group when honorable members speak from these diverse backgrounds and we bring it together. We truly then are representing the interests of the people. Let me then, as I bring this session to an end, mention that we don't want to leave no one behind. Does include as well departments within our portfolio. We do not want to leave citizens behind, and we certainly don't want to leave any department behind. We must, arising out of this meeting, have a closer conversation. There must be a deeper conversation with CETA, with Postbank, and the concept of interoperability must be deepened. We must close the gaps. We cannot make the same mistakes again. We must, and I like what Kula you mentioned, there would be only one government app and one government solution, digital solution, and that's what we want to see. We don't want to see more than one. We want to see one universal app that we all as citizens can use. So for me, that is critical as we venture. And we would also love to see that in the tenure of this portfolio committee, which ends in 2029, we are able to achieve this journey of DPI, this envisioned journey of this single citizens app that serves all our people. And finally, maybe let's not feel shy. We will certainly, Rudy, consider taking you up on that offer about deepening our understanding of Operation Vulindlela and the DSU in particular. And finally, on the few times that I've met officials from India, both in India and more recently in the Africa Tech, there were officials from India who very readily indicated they want to share their journey with us. And they're not driven monetarily. It would appear they're driven by a genuine intention to assist us. So we have partners like this who want to partner with us, who want to assist us. Let's call upon them and let us try and expedite this journey. Thank you so much, honorable colleagues and honorable members, for this wonderful engagement surrounding the DSU and the role of Operation Vulindlela in this journey here. We're going to move off that item, and before I bring the meeting to a close, Secretariat have indicated to me that there is some housekeeping issues surrounding the meeting next week, whether we want to have it physical or virtual, and then also regarding the proposed MDDA oversight that we had agreed on the 11th. There is a parliamentary program change. So let me invite Teminkosi from Secretariat, maybe Teminkosi, to take us into the two elements. One is the issue surrounding next week meeting, whether we honourable members want to keep it at virtual or physical. And then secondly, the parliamentary change in the program and its impact and the proposal surrounding the MDDA oversight. Temenkosi, maybe you can lead us into that, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to members, department officials, and everyone else in the platform. Chair, as you've indicated, we've had some few changes. Firstly, just want to remind the members that our committee meetings were initially scheduled to the last meeting was scheduled for the 25th of November on the basis that in the old parliamentary program, Tuesday 2 November, there would have been a plenary that was scheduled for the morning. However, there is an updated parliamentary program, Tuesday 2 December. The morning session is open to committees, and then the plenary will be taking place in the afternoon. Chairperson, in the next program, in the amended or revised program that I will present, we've made proposals for this date of for that slot now, seemingly that is back on the program again. And then, Chairperson, the other change on the parliamentary program is that it now ends the one before this program. Parliament was scheduled to rise on the 9th, which would have been on Tuesday. However, in terms of the revised parliamentary program, Parliament will rise now on Thursday, the 4th of December, even though Friday, 5th December remains committees open to committees. And then there's then those items that will be carried over to January next year after it's just one Tuesday in actual fact that Parliament will sit. So I just wanted to bring those to the attention of the committee. And now, Chair, if I can just take members quickly to what then do we propose following those changes. As I had indicated, the first one, Chairperson, is that we have our next meeting physical. We just thought that is just to bring it to the attention of the members, and we'll leave it there, Chairperson. And the next one, Chair, now that the Tuesday is open in the morning, members would remember that we had considered the DCDT, GCIS, and MDDA first quarter reports. So we were now then proposing that perhaps on the Tuesday of the December, we bring back the two departments and the NDT, MDDA for their second quarter performance and financial report. And then, Chairperson, we were proposing, because we had initially, in the last meeting, the committee had agreed on conducting an oversight visit to MDDA on the 11th of December, which would have been the following week, on a Thursday. We coming with a proposal that perhaps that oversight visit be moved earlier, which is December the 5th, as it is now open to committees following the rising of the NA on Thursday. So those are the changes that we're bringing to the committee, Chair, and will be guided by whatever decision that the committee takes on those three matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Temenkosi. Colleagues, you have the amendments, the proposed amendments, Secretariat have presented to us. Maybe the first point I'd like to then ask the feeling of the House is regarding the physical meeting on the 25th. Up to now, all our meetings have been virtual. Do we want to leave it as virtual or have a physical? My feeling is, I see your committee, we're getting entities, industry stakeholders, public. Do we feel that we've been more effective in a virtual space and we should go with virtual? Maybe that will be one of the questions I'll probably ask. And then the second question we need to deal with is, and you're proposing, therefore, we move that forward, which was to fill the Tuesday, the second gap. We've also got two important, we've got is is it on December 2nd, Teminkosi, that we will be doing the declaration on the telcos, tabling of the report on the meeting with the telcos? That will be on Tuesday afternoon in the House. Is that correct, Teminkosi?
Chairperson, that is scheduled for Thursday.
That will be on Thursday.
The Thursday on. Sorry, Chair, my bad. It is scheduled for Tuesday. You are correct.
Yes.
Where the committee's MNO report will be before the NA. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so thank you so much. So that is probably okay. So that's also committee. That's the plenary. We'll be tabling that report, and it's possible that we might even have to table the BRRR for DCDT and GCIS next week. So that is also possible. We have adopted the report, but we haven't tabled it in Parliament. So that will be the Tuesday 2nd. And then what you're proposing is we move the 11th to Friday, the 5th of December. Honorable members, let's get your input into that. My suggestion is that we move the meeting for the 25th to virtual. And that we adopt the proposal, we adopt it to December 2nd, then gets filled with that item. And then the 11th oversight, we bring it forward to the Friday, the 5th. That would be my suggestion and proposals to honorable members. Honorable Jabale? Your hand is up. Is that a legacy hand?
Yeah, Chair. No, sorry. Remember, it takes a while just to get to these devices. Thanks a lot, Chair. I support your suggestion that we keep a virtual when critical, and when we have a lot of stakeholders that are critical, maybe we can do a physical. But at this stage, I don't think it's necessary to hold a physical meeting, knowing that people are all over the show and some are still doing oversight as well. So I would suggest the virtual part of it, and if we need to supplement, we can always decide thereof.
Thank you, Honorable Chabaleng. So Honorable Chabaleng is supporting my proposal that we go virtual. Honorable Adonis, and thereafter Honorable Potlani. Honorable Megan Choki-Adonis.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I'm also in support with your suggestion in terms of keeping the session for next week virtual and also adopting the proposed amendment for the program. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Choki-Adonis. Honorable Bodlani.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I think for me the consideration is the availability of flights to Cape Town, considering really going into the end of the year. And ourselves, we've had some struggles with booking flights to Cape Town. So with that consideration, I would second the suggestion that we continue with this as an online meeting, even though we will be in Cape Town ourselves, because we will need to travel to make our contributions on the report on Thursday. But I think it will just be sending everybody into a tailspin to be asking people to start booking for flights this late in the day. Thanks, Chair. And I do support all the other recommendations with moving dates forward. It does help because that was always my worry to say, if we are going to leave the MDDA oversight visit to that late, well, I say late in the work calendar, we could really be imposing ourselves on people who should be on festive season holidays. So I'm very happy that we are at least bringing it forward, Chair. Thanks.
I can see you're very, very happy, Honorable Bodlani. That will also be the December 5th will also be our final get-together as a committee where we'll see each other face to face. So it will also be our year-end party on that oversight visit. But thank you so much, Honorable members, for supporting.
We heard you, Chair. You said party. We'll hold you to
it. So thank you so much, Honorable members, for supporting and
Chair, before you finish, man. Chair, I just raised my hand. I think you didn't see it. Sorry. Quick one on the question of oversight, Chair. We know we did an oversight into the Northern Cape on one of the committees. There's a huge connectivity problem there. You would drive for 300 kilometers with no connection in the Northern Cape. I mean, we've been right up to the border almost of Namibia in the Northern Cape and the neighboring communities. It's quite a bit of a challenge. And I think as a committee, we need to maybe do an oversight to look at that challenge and see what can be done on a support and mitigation basis. There's a real crisis on connectivity. You come from, I think it's now Kimberley, you drive right down to Port Nolos and going to the other side of the border. It's a massive crisis of connectivity, you know. So I think this issue should be brought to a point of attention where we need to go into the rural areas of some of our border towns in South Africa and really get to understand how do people survive without connectivity properly. And then what can the entities do to support that initiative? I just thought, well, from the point of oversight, let me just add that one quick one.
Thank you, Honorable Chabaleng. I think committee secretariat and content advisors would have made note of that. Last year, recall in our oversight visit in the Eastern Cape, there was a harrowing incident that took place, and the rural residents were unable to get the necessary assistance because of poor connectivity. So indeed, rural connectivity is a problem that's affecting access to vital services of our people, and we will prioritize that. As we have indicated in our program, we are trying to get 2 oversight visits per term, and we will definitely prioritize the rural areas as we plan ahead. But thank you, colleagues, for supporting us. The amended program will be shared by the Secretariat. Yes, Honorable Choki Adonis, and then Honorable Singh. Let me take Honorable Singh first. Honorable Singh.
Yeah, Chair, sorry. Yes, sorry. You hadn't noticed my hand. Chair, I just want to clarify something. I don't have any issues and I'm supporting all the changes to the program. I just want to confirm the oversight visit that we're moving. So when did we have approval for the 11th? I'm assuming we had, that's why it was on there. And is it for the entire committee? Because some of us will have to still book flights for that oversight visit on the 5th. So is it the entire committee or is it a set number of members? Like we've had some issues before. You know, I don't like the idea when the whole committee can't go on oversight visit. But I mean, obviously there's been some issues with cost considerations. So can we just have some clarity on that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. Mr. Ngoma, you want to respond to Honorable Singh?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Chair, the intention for the oversight is to have all members of the committee attend the oversight visit. And Chairperson, on the other question, no honorable member, we have not obtained approval yet. With this agreement made here today, it then kickstart our processes. As such, members will be receiving calls and or messages from our gentleman, Mr. Erasmus, who does logistics. And once we have all that information on the members' travel, we'll then put together a political application for submission to the Office of the House Chairperson for approval. So we request members, as Mr. Erasmus goes through that exercise, to assist him with the information that we'll be requesting from members. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Mr. Ngoma. Please note the discussions that the committee has had regarding support. We hope that this oversight visit will be a turnaround for us. So thank you so much for that. And please, as soon as possible, inform members because it will be difficult to get flights at that time of the year. But thank you so much, honorable members. Thank you for once again for a very productive and a very robust meeting and for assisting me in ensuring that the matters that we need to deal with today were expeditiously and effectively dealt with, and we will meet again in our next virtual meeting next week, Tuesday. Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.